This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
Presented by First Light, creating proven, versatile hunting apparel from merino base layers to technical outerwear for every hunt. First Light. Go farther, stay longer. Is it on, Phil?
Machine's on. Do you want to put your headphones on?
Oh.
You don't have to. Suggestion.
Okay, you good?
We're rolling.
Definitely got to hit Phil's upcoming show.
No,
dates.
we already.
Funny you mentioned that 'cause it's in here. I'm gonna give Corinne a compliment sandwich.
Okay.
You ready? You guys know what a compliment sandwich is?
No,
Lay it
I've explained
on
it.
with some honey
Like
mustard.
if you need to critique someone, right? You don't just come in and critique them.
Yeah, but I like when
Negative.
it's straightforward.
The bad's in the middle.
You come in and say something good, then you say the thing you're trying to get across, and then you end on something good.
Yeah.
So, Corinne, that was great that you got that red stag in Scotland. See?
Thanks, dude.
Sometimes you can do what's called an open face sandwich. Where you don't end it with a comment. So there, and then now I'm going to go, Corinne, the notes today are, it's like 8 hours worth of material, sloppily arranged. And then you got that, and then now I'm going to go, God, you look great today, Corinne.
It's a true pausing egg.
Okay, well, we can cut out a
You look
fair
great.
bit. We can cut out a fair bit, Steve.
Did you try a new soap?
New conditioner.
What does my face look fresh?
She bought a new kind of soap in Scotland. Did you have fun in Scotland, for real?
I had a fantastic time.
Did you like it?
It was wonderful. I mean, the hunting process is obviously a bit different.
Yeah,
It
now
takes
your deers are like for sale in some market now.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Some
yeah,
dude's eating your deer like that he bought at the store.
Mm-hmm. That's or like dog food.
Ooh.
But yeah, I mean the government, the Scottish government tells an estate how much. I mean, it determines how many animals on its property need to be culled, and then so there's a professional stalker at each estate, and that's their duty to carry out what's required. And then if you're there hunting it, you're kind of helping to, fulfill the aim. And each animal is then sold to a game dealer. And I was told that it's like sold with the coat on and the head off.
When you guys gutted
just
it, did you gutted it from the diaphragm back, right?
Yes.
Which they got a weird sounding name for, like Glock.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but they didn't. Yeah, they did it a different way.
Look that up, Yanni. I'd type
did
in
it
something
differently.
like Scottish. I don't know. Gutting
Gutting
method.
diaphragm. That'll get you started.
Was it a drive hunt? Was it like driven,
No,
or were you stalking?
Stalking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the voice of Phil Lavretsky, Russian-born researcher who has a University of Texas at El Paso. Corinne has pointed out that you have a whole lab named after you.
Sure do.
Explain what you guys do. You're here to talk about mallard ducks and some real problems.
We are.
Yeah.
Real problems. Yeah, no. I run a wildlife genetics lab. While we focus on ducks, our whole shtick is field to gene. We are, right now I have crews in Arizona catching Mexican ducks and other crews in Texas catching model ducks. And we do everything from catching, banding, telemetry work, all the way to population genetics, evolution, these types of things. And basically the difference or the big thing about us is we use genetics to identify individuals correctly. So we have no, you can't run away from your genetics. It is what it is. So by understanding who we're working with, we can better...
Who as in critters?
Critters.
Now, this is all just a prelude to her answering the question, but I just wanted people to know who they were hearing talking.
Who it is, the foundation. Yeah, so our foundation is genetics, and then we explore everything from migration to morphology, how hybridization causes issues, if so, if not, how releases feral populations in New Zealand, here in North America, Europe, how are they establishing? Why did they establish? And how they look like compared to the things that they came from.
Got it. We're gonna get into that heavy duty.
Real heavy.
Corinne, go on though.
Oh yeah, so the animal is sold in full coat to a game dealer, and then that game dealer turns it around again and sells it to a butcher.
But you guys cut it off at the knees, right? When I was there, they did. They gutted it, diaphragm back, cut it off at the knees, and out the door.
So diaphragm and guts were cut out, left for the eagles, and then we drug out the animal for a little bit and met horses, and then we threw it. Head comes off, but nothing was cut off at the knees.
Mm-hmm.
It came all the way down back to the
What
house.
about a horse?
On a horse, yeah. They come out with horses, and one horse like holds the head, or that's kind of like the horse in training that eventually might have the body of the animal on it, and you walk it down on a horse.
How many did you guys shoot?
Morgan Potter, who's been on the show before, he got 2. I got 1, and our friend David, who invited us, got 1.
Are they gonna? Do you get to send the head home and keep it?
I've got the antlers somewhere in the mail on their way over to Bozeman.
With the skull cap, or you just sawed them off?
So they, it's kind of, skull cap, like kind of like a yarmulke, where that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
Yeah.
Phil's tracking.
I don't know what you call that, but
That's a skull cap.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's if you cut a little deep around your yarmulke.
Yeah.
You'd wind up with it.
Wind up with that.
But it like slices the eye sockets in the middle.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah.
It's not like just tight around the.
That saves you a lot of cutting
Yeah.
when you get the eye sockets into your cut. Yeah.
Well, I think it also makes for a nice flush mount to
Yes,
the wall, and then
that is
the
right,
antlers
Yanni.
sitting
Fits flat.
That's
against
right.
the wall.
Years ago, we were hunting in Alabama in Tuskegee National Forest, and I killed a little teeny spike horn that had 1.5-inch spikes. And when I skull capped them, I just cut this super narrow strip of bone to connect the 2 little spikes. And I'm not joking. I went home. I flew home with his rack in my shirt pocket.
Probably fit in the Ziploc bag.
So I could pull it out and
That's
show
probably
people
cool.
right out of my shirt pocket, man. Holy cow, man. Like I said, we got so much to talk about. We're going to...
Let's not make the show like 2 hours and a half. Let's like maybe cut a thing out. We can cut the non-waterfowl stuff out.
Listen, let me take a look here. The Flying V guys are here. Introduce yourself, boys.
You want to go ahead?
Matt,
You want me
Brady?
to?
Yep.
Who goes first?
Matt McCormick here. Yep. Live in Bozeman. My partner Brady.
Yep. Brady Davis. I also live here in town. Flying V. Matt and I have a couple companies called Flying V. This year is going to be really fun. We're going to be doing a bunch of waterfowl content with MeatEater and for MeatEater. So we're super pumped about that.
And you guys manage land.
Yeah, we've got another business where we do land and ranch management. So we do, habitat construction, restoration, and management. And so...
Yeah, these guys are like the Army Corps of Engineers, man. I went out on a tour with these guys in terms of like waterfowl habitats. Impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then waterfowl is the primary focus. Ducks, around here, ducks are a primary focus for us. But there's inherently some elk stuff and some deer stuff and some upland stuff that kind of comes along with it. Excited to be here to talk a little bit more with you, Phil. But yeah, it's development and restoration, man. And it's for the greater good, providing food, safety, nesting habitat, all that.
Yeah, a lot of wetlands work you guys get involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers on a lot of that stuff
Oh,
because
so I thought I was just making a joke.
No,
You nailed it.
I mean, when you start doing stuff like this, there's natural wetlands and everything. I mean, they got to come out and they'll bring a big roll of red flags and they'll put it all over the property and say you cannot touch this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the way across the board, you cannot mess with it.
You can add to it, but not mess with it.
Yeah.
Yep, and if you take some, you have to give some back, but they have parameters around that. There's a bunch of permitting and everything. But the state of Montana, they love trout, so you kind of lean on the trout thing, and trout then everything that a trout loves, a duck loves too. So
So you know how to game it.
yeah, you have to
Be
game
like,
it.
and the brown trout are gonna love it.
And
Great spawning beds.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, it's the same answer, but a different question, right? What's good for the trout? What's good for the duck? But it's the same answer.
Yeah. And then you guys,
That's good that aligns.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
you guys.
you guys gave up on like basically most kinds of hunting just to focus on ducks over the years.
Yeah, it's funny. We both grew up doing all kinds of hunting. Matt grew up waterfowl hunting when he was young. I did not. I got into waterfowl hunting in my early 20s.
Yeah, because you're from the arid West. Right?
Yep. Yep. And I got into it in my early 20s. The problem is once I got into it, it was over.
No looking back.
The very first day I had some decoys, called in a few geese,
I remember you told me about that.
Shot
day.
'em.
Yeah, they're-
and the day those geese died, I walked into the house. I was a newlywed, told my wife, I'm like, game over. I had hounds. I was hunting lions and bears and stuff with dogs, and those dogs got sold. And next thing you know, I had a Labrador and more decoys and more decoys. And if you ask my wife, more decoys.
I'm surprised those lion dogs didn't team up and kill that lab out of spite.
I moved them out of the asylum before the next inmate came in.
Yeah, they're like, this sumbitch is going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Now, I had a question. Now, do you guys go after NACA grants? Is that how you guys do a lot of the habitat work?
Yeah, there is some of that, and we work with a couple different consultant agencies that just focus on permitting, right? Because you need people that can read the fine print, and at the end of the day, we're looking to do macro restoration, and so a lot of those guys are handling the details of that. But yes, to your question.
There's some of that. We also, a lot of our clients are people who have purchased the land for the purpose of hunting.
Mhm.
So they are willing to invest more money, and they're good to put the money in for the end result. And so at the end of the day, what we care about is that the birds are there and that the habitat supports holding the birds, not just having them there for a shoot or for a hunt. And so we're looking at everything from, okay, how do we get them here, but then how do we hold them and maintain and keep them there? So the wetland stuff is a big part of it, but we also do a ton of farming, planning, consulting, which crops go in, the layout on the property, where the corn needs to go and the spring wheat and the barley and the peas, and how all that lays out on the property and in reference to the water sources as well.
I should maybe have you guys take a look at my pumpkin patch.
We're here.
Would
Yeah.
love to.
I've never done anything with pumpkins
My
except
goal
shoot
was
them with a
4
shotgun.
big pumpkins, and I wound up with just 2. But we can talk about it later. And I got 3 kids, so this is not going over well. Yanni, I'm sick of doing it. Plug the MeatEater Live show. Let me hear you just tear it up.
With no notes.
No, here.
There's no notes in this document that
Well, 'cause
Corinne put
Corinne,
together.
it just didn't do a
Let me
very
see
good
your
job of
computer.
producing.
I didn't want to spend 17 minutes on us talking about all the locations.
Yanni's going to do it in speed version. Hit it, Janis.
If you're looking for something really fun to do
This is a great
in
approach.
December, and you live somewhere between Colorado and Philly, you're in luck because MeatEater is.
You notice how it makes like a little line across the country?
Yeah, totally. And I know a lot of people are upset from the south, southeast, Texas, other parts of the country, because they're like, "What about us?" And we only have so much time in our lives.
Yeah, and when the pandemic,
have-
Corinne, you keeping track how long we talk about this?
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, we were going out the other direction, but it all got canceled because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have hit, states and cities all over the country in the past. And I think that in future versions of this, we probably will hit the South and we'll hit the West Coast. But this time around, we're in Denver, Kansas City, Missouri, Davenport, Iowa, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio, Pittsburgh, PA, and Philly, PA. So all VIP tickets are already sold out, but there are general admission tickets left. Come and see us. Go to themeateater.com if you want to see the dates that will be at each one of those. It's roughly December 6th through the December 15th.
A lot of great
How's
guests
that?
lined up. We got guests lined up all over the damn place. Kevin Murphy's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have
Derek Wolf.
We're gonna have a casting contest at every show.
Ooh.
In order to win a seat at the trivia table. How long was that, Corinne? Good?
Mm-hmm. Next.
You loving?
That was great.
Phil, over to Phil. Speaking of live shows, take it away, Phil.
You're being very, very generous. I think this is the 3rd time we've talked about this local community theater thing I'm doing. But
Phil's a thespian.
this one's for all you in Michigan. Come on out. The Yellum Theater, October 20th, doing a show. It's a 1930 screwball comedy called You Can't Take It With You.
Just
Great
one?
job, Phil.
Just one.
Oh, no,
2
we're doing
weekends,
6 or
6
7
shows.
shows. It's 2 weekends long. Starts the 20th, goes through the 29th.
Okay.
Yep.
Still tickets available?
There are still some tickets available, yes.
Okay.
Dude, I went to a live show the other night, and it was one of my favorite bands, but probably the worst show I've ever seen.
Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to stay. I told my wife, I had a bunch of friends. Well, not a bunch. Yeah, I went down there with a bunch of friends. And I said, listen, I want to have my own car because I'm not staying. I'm just going to have a look. Like, I don't like, I'm going to have a look, and I'm going to go home. So if you want to stay, drive separate. But we all left at the same time early. They did a horrible job.
Wow.
But he said something that's been keeping me up at night. He said, it's good to be back in this part of the country that I love so well that teeters between rugged individualism and common sense. Please don't let it tip too far. Now,
Is that why you left early?
no.
Okay.
But what's keeping me up at night is what way does he mean that it's tipping?
Which is the good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like tip, like, you could read it that he doesn't think it should tip too far in either direction because it teeters on the edge, or he feels that it's tipping.
Well, the term common sense has
Too
like a
common
positive
sense.
connotation, I would say. So my gut would be he's saying it's tipping too far towards rugged individualism. He's saying,
Nah, that's not how I read it.
Okay.
It keep me up at night.
Maybe,
That wasn't even in the talking points.
maybe he's trying to say that he would like us to keep that balance.
That's what yeah.
And that we should just hold those two qualities near and dear and don't tip out of wherever else we might end up.
Stay on the knife's edge.
Yeah.
Stay on the knife's edge. Man. Just a lot of stuff to talk
Steve
about.
is giving me stink eye.
No, this is all great. This is all great. I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to jump around for a minute. Oh, here's the thing I want to talk about. This is a correction to a correction. Usually we'll limit it to like, there'll be a statement, a correction to a correction, a correction to that correction, and then we usually drop it.
Yeah.
This is where we're at. I don't even want to get into it. Some number of episodes ago, I talked about a piece that came out, I believe in Free Press, Barry Weiss's publication, Free Press, where I have an article coming out, I'll point out. And it was a researcher who just written a piece about wildfires in California, and he was writing and he published it in the journal. Like, the two most prestigious scientific journals on the planet are Nature and Science. You agree?
I agree.
Okay, he agrees. You ever had anything in there?
They don't like ducks.
Oh, well, let me give you a tip. You want to get something in there? Listen to what I'm going to tell you.
I'm all ears.
He said, he published in Nature about the role of climate change in wildfires in California, and then published an op-ed saying, if you want to be published in Science or Nature, you have to focus exclusively on climate. You could, all the myriad factors that go into wildfires, like why the increase in human-caused wildfires, forestry practices, the lack of forestry practices leading to wildfires, electrical transmission practices leading into wildfires. And he says, no one's going to care. If it's climate change, you will get published. Then some stuff came out where they revealed that in the review process of his article, Nature, the editors at Nature had said, well, have you factored in all this other stuff? And he said, well, I'm going to get to it in later research projects. So they kind of did like a gotcha, meaning, oh no, we did ask about all of that stuff. And he is going to get to it later, but we specifically asked about all these other factors. Then what came back, he said, like, but we would have never had that conversation had I focused on those other factors. Heffelfinger writes in, your discussion about climate change writing in Nature confused me. When I sent you the link to that guy's blog, I didn't realize that was exactly the story you were talking about in the original podcast, number 478. I sent you that as supporting information for what you were talking about, the positive bias in climate change publishing, which is absolutely a rampant problem. Everything he said in that article was true, completely. I see it all the time. When researchers are writing a proposal to get a research grant, they have to make everything about climate change. Follow the narrative. That's where the money is. A study on summer precipitation on elk calf recruitment becomes all about climate change, dry summers. The first draft of one of my son's papers from his master's degree mentioned climate change in 6 of 10 sentences in the abstract because his major professor was trying to get in a prestigious journal, and it has to be about climate change to accomplish that. It was simply a mule deer fawn survival study in Nevada, and the abstract was all about climate change, the narrative again. This is a huge problem in scientific writing. And he goes on. Then he goes on to say, basically, how could you have been surprised by the thing of the rabbit don't die when it comes to pregnancy tests because it's an Aerosmith? I'll point out, it's Aerosmith's only good song.
Ooh.
Where he says, what does he say? Because the rabbit done died.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning a pregnancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Why are you so
sped through
exasperated
that.
this morning?
Yeah, you're doing well.
What was the time on that?
It's like 12 seconds.
New Jersey. Can we hit this, Corinne?
Yeah, it'll take a minute.
Remember when I said my least favorite politician in America was New Jersey's governor, Murphy?
Mm-hmm.
Who I would know him. Oh, no, I would know him because I remember when he was one of those governors that got real telling everybody not to do anything during the pandemic, and then he gets caught out in a restaurant without his mask.
Yeah.
Anyways, he campaigned on shutting down the black bear hunt in New Jersey, which makes him my least favorite politician in America. My current least favorite politician in America is Jay Inslee. But back then, my least favorite politician in America was Murphy. Well, the New Jersey hunt is back on. The New Jersey bear hunt's back on. New Jersey screws with hunters real bad. So they'll do a black bear hunt. And when you kill a black bear, you have to bring it in. This is quite common across pretty much. I can't think of a single state where you kill a black bear and don't bring the black bear in so they can collect some biometric data off it. Here, in the state we're sitting in right now in Montana, which teeters on the edge of common sense and rugged individualism, when you kill a bear, you take it down to Fish and Game, you go into the front office, you say, hey, I have a bear I'd like to check. Like a biologist to come out, you go in the back, you'll do your bear check in privacy, right? You go to in Ketchikan, Alaska, you'll bring your bear in, you go to a place, you go in some level of privacy, you do your bear check. New Jersey, when they do a bear hunt, they're like, hear ye, hear ye. All bear hunters will have to come walk the gauntlet of protesters to publicly register their bear hunt while getting, what was that word we talked about the other day?
What is the meaning
Accosted?
of the word?
Accosted
Oh, okay.
by getting accosted. Good job, Janis.
We talk about a lot of words
Yeah.
over the years, so it's hard to remember the last one. But yeah.
So it causes all this trouble and all these protests, and then everybody gets bent out of shape. Meanwhile, it has the highest density of black bears anywhere. New Jersey has the highest density of black bears anywhere in the country. So the controversial black bear hunt is back on in New Jersey following a Superior Court judge's ruling that did not favor animal rights groups and de facto Murphy. Monday marked the first day of the October hunt. So what the hell Monday was that? Whatever the hell Monday was.
I think this came out like last week, so this is like early October.
Another is scheduled in December. Hunters brought the bears they killed to the Whittingham Wildlife Management Area in Newton. One limitation is the bears weighing less than 75 pounds can't be harvested. Ooh.
That's tricky.
I like
Yeah,
that
that
though,
is.
man.
You do?
Well, I like it because of the alternative. Because remember what happened last time when New Jersey did a bear hunt? Someone killed that bear Pedals that had like the deformed feet.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody liked it because it had no feet.
I don't remember that.
John Muell.
Corinne's having that.
Oh,
John
Yeah,
Muellen, who's
right.
been on the show twice, and I love the guy to death. I'd like to strangle him for this. Wrote an obituary of the bear.
Oh.
Great guy. Great writer. Wrote an obituary for Pedals.
Love
was
you, John.
it was when a hunter killed Pebbles, it was reported that Pedals had been assassinated. So where was I? 75-pound limit. That is tricky. Wildlife officials say the hunt is the most effective way to prevent bear and human encounters in densely populated New Jersey. I can't remember how many bear complaints they had.
Well, so New Jersey resumed hunting in 2022, or bear hunting, last year, due to reports of the animals causing property damage and being a nuisance, with reports of those up nearly 240% since the previous year, 2021.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Florida's going to face a similar situation. Florida tried a bear hunt. They ran it very conservatively. Everything went right, but they blew past their harvest quota. Like if you're doing a hunt and you have a harvest quota, a lot of times you'll check every night. Like let's say you have a hunt and you say that there's a harvest quota of 10 and you open it up in this big area. Well, every day you're counting how many things get registered, but the rule is that it shuts off in 48 hours because you need time to spread the word, or it shuts off in 24 hours. So Florida hit their quota way quicker than they thought. They closed it, but then the 24-hour window made them blow past the quota. Everyone had such a conniption. But half the country looked, my half, looked and was like, man, there must be a lot of bears. And then the other half looked and be like, man, they killed all the bears. And just like different worldviews, right? And they're going to take another shot at it, I believe, in Florida.
I don't know about that.
Can I just jump back to Jersey for a second? So we're really only talking about 2 short weeks, so October 9th through the 14th and December 4th through the 9th as hunting days. So we're not talking about like a long season of months and months. So, and then it looks like on the first day of this season, 105 bears were killed.
On the first day?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Can they bait out there?
No way.
Probably not.
Great opener.
Probably not, but and I don't know statistics on like.
Sounds like you just kind of go out and sit on your back porch.
Yeah.
And they don't hibernate over there, apparently.
Well, they stay up all year?
I don't know if the
yeah.
season's in December.
Oh, I bet they go down eventually. They probably intermittently.
Maybe
go
that's
down.
why they did the December hunt, because they know they're all going to be hibernated by then. So
they're like, all right, y'all go.
You win this one. We're going to give you a hunt in December.
Oh, check this stuff out. So everybody knows FHF. You should know FHF. FHF gear, fish hunt fight, all American made gear. If you like to hunt ducks, and we're here to talk about ducks, you should check out so you know, like the bino rigs. If you see our stuff, you'll always see that we wear a lot of FHF bino rigs, which are the best bino rigs on the planet. Paul's been in the bino rig game since the bino rig game began. What's funny is our camera guys discovered that they had been wasting all of this real estate on their bodies, and so they started wearing bino rigs to carry their junk in it.
So nice.
Yeah, and Mo's like, I can't believe my whole life I just wasted this area in front of my body when I could have had all my shit there. So he started wearing bino rigs and just filling it full of batteries and lens wipes and whatever stuff he wanted. Like he'll be in some restaurant in Paris with a bino rig on, you know, filming. Anyhow, so eventually the FHF bino rig morphed into like a chest rig, just a gear rig. And FHF now has the waterproof chest rig. So for when you're out hunting ducks or, I don't know, trapping muskrats, you got a total waterproof rig, which I guess has been getting a lot of interest from various military groups that like that thing as well. So a totally waterproof submersible chest rig that you can keep. So when you dunk and you come up, your phone and all your stuff's still good. And then there's an E4 pouch that attaches to the main rig so you can accessorize the dickens out of it. And then the best thing on the planet, I don't know how it's one, I guess it's fair. It was Cal's idea. The Cal pouch, which has changed my life because the Cal pouch.
Oh, that's what it's short for? I thought it was like short for.
No, it's short for
I don't know,
Callahan.
caliber, something.
It was his
else.
idea.
No kidding.
So it's a shell bag. Okay, picture this. It's this little square shell bag with a handle on it.
No, I saw a picture
and a
of
zipper.
It.
You can dump 3 boxes of shells.
Pretty clever.
Like I think it'll hold 3 boxes of 2 3/4, maybe 3 boxes of 3-inch. I know because we have the bird loads. I can dump 20. Okay, let me say this. I know for a fact that for my kids, I can dump 3 boxes of 20 gauge 6-shot in the bag. It zips and it's like this square little bag.
I love it.
And then it's got a slit in it with a clear plastic window. So you cut out of the shell box what the hell it is and slide it in the window. And you can got like, so there's camo side panels, there's orange side panels. So when I organize mine, I know that the orange is upland shells, the camo is waterfowl shells. Then I took a marker and wrote 12-20 because my kids shoot 20s and I shoot a 12. It's the greatest. This year hunting youth duck, I took one of those bags, unzipped it, set it in front of all the kids, and everybody just shoots out of the thing. You're not messing around with boxes that get wet and fall apart. Cal pouch.
So Phil has a lab
bullshit,
named
man.
after him, and Cal has a pouch named after
Cal
him.
pouch.
Steve, I also use that for dog food. If I'm doing like a day trip or
There you
2-day
go.
trip, throw dog food in there. It works out great.
I love
idea.
it. It is a great idea. Yeah. Should be called Steve Reno.
Doesn't have the same ring though. Just doesn't have the same ring.
Also, DSD's Honker Maxima line available this fall. DSD is, here's the thing about DSD decoys. In such demand that like, more people are trying to, I shouldn't say this because it works against DSD. You got to wait in line to get DSD decoys sometimes.
Because they're so good.
Yeah. I never realized this. People want those decoys. So get in line. Well, they're kind of getting all this taken care of, but just an enormous amount of demand for DSD decoys. And their Maxima Honker line available this fall. And a brand new Maxima full bodies, geese, full bodies soon. Floaters are in stock now. Stackable sleeper shells will be back in stock soon as well. So if you're sitting around wondering why you got to wait to get DSD decoys, it sounds like your problems are over. DSD has also re-released their deadly snow goose decoys with more poses and a brand new motion system that is user-friendly and offers even more realistic movement than before. So check all that out. And while you're at it, check out the duck and goose calls over at Phelps Game Calls. New Jersey. Should we talk about New Jersey more, Corinne?
No, we already. That was enough. That's.
I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
I have something on duck
You
calls.
sounded
real
so
quick.
serious.
Oh, please.
So I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but there's a MeatEater collab call coming out from 737 Duck Calls
Okay.
that is bad to the bone.
Is it good?
Yes. It the call runs awesome. We've used their calls for a long time, but Matt just got the proof texted to him yesterday. We were on a call with those guys yesterday, but that call is going to be coming out in November.
Yep.
You got one in your
early
pocket?
November.
You got one in your pocket right
no,
now?
I got
We
a
don't.
pic. I got a
We have
picture.
it's a
I can
limited
give you
run.
a sneak peek on the picture.
So there's only going to be a couple hundred of them.
Oh, really?
So they're going to go like hotcakes and
Can I
be
have
gone
one?
quick. Can you?
You can buy it. It's
I'm
going to be
sure-
for sale on
I'm sure you
the
probably know a
MeatEater.com.
guy that could help you acquire one. Yeah,
Man, that'd be cool.
but they're awesome. So
Oh, sweet.
Single or double?
It's going to be a single read.
single read.
Cool.
Yeah,
Just
so that'll be
quick
coming
look.
out early November.
Yep.
Max Barta, really quickly introduce yourself too. You come on all the time. Have you ever won trivia?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
Really?
I've
You
won
playing
trivia
today?
a couple times. Yeah.
A couple times.
You've won
Before
a couple times.
Well, I've been on the podcast a couple times, but I've only won trivia once.
Who was
Great
there?
day.
Was Dr. Randall there?
Dr. Randall was there.
Was Brody there?
Brody was there.
Oh,
And you won.
Yeah. I won in overtime.
wow.
So
we need a new
Um,
nickname for
overtime.
Max.
no, I think the only reason why I'm here because I like ducks and I want to talk about ducks and learn more about ducks. So
Yeah, this guy's like, he's taking sending me like
Undersells
duck
himself.
pictures. He's like, look at all these ducks I killed. And I'm like, where? Just a spot.
I'm not gonna tell you.
Great answer.
It is a
Great answer.
I'm gonna block his
Montana.
number, dude. You should be able to block people's numbers based on what they texted you. Like it filters. Like grip and grins, you gotta like opt in or out for their grip and grins, man.
Right.
Oh, what's super cool is a guy right down the road in Belgrade, Montana won the federal duck stamp contest. Had you guys heard of this artist before?
I had not heard of him. No.
I hadn't either.
Chuck Black. He's going to come on the show, but not for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early in the new year.
Yeah. I was surprised how young he was. I don't know what I was picturing.
Good for him. I don't
You know what I
how-
was picturing in my head? Elliot West.
Who's in his 70s.
I was picturing Elliot West. But yeah, like he's been in this business his whole life. Right? Is that correct? I'm asking you.
Yeah,
look at
I
this.
mean, I
Phil's
guess
doing
it
some
looks
AV.
like it looked like he started drawing at least when he was a kid.
And he doesn't do just ducks either. He does coyotes, birds, elk, scenic stuff.
It's like beautiful
Incredible
wildlife
landscape stuff, too.
photography.
Yeah.
Painting, sorry.
This video that Phil's showing right here kind of documents the process, but it also shows him up in Red Rocks, up in Montana, getting the inspiration video for this duck. So this duck is actually like a Montana duck, which is pretty cool.
Steve, do you know what kind of duck that is?
It's pintail.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Tell you what, we got we ate a pintail 2 nights ago that my kid just got. He got an antelope hunting of all things.
Oh.
Yeah. With the proper firearm.
Wait a second. Great way to get a pintail.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So congratulations, Chuck Blackford. So he'll be on next year's duck stamp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
2024. Yep.
I was hunting antelope with my kids. So I have my boy and my daughter. My boy's old enough, but my daughter's not old enough. And he gets a buck. And we get it all cut up and we're carrying it and we hit a road. And I'm like, oh, this road will go to the truck. So I tell the kids, you wait here. And I'm gonna go get the truck. And so they want to go up to this little hill to look around. I come back a while later. I had to walk a mile. I come back and they're nowhere to be seen. So I'm honking the horn. Like, what the hell happened to him? And all of a sudden, Rosie comes running over the hill. Jimmy got a coyote. Jimmy got a coyote.
What?
Yeah. Just
Actually?
flea-riddenness. Yeah. So we got all that skinned out.
I'm sure you were happy.
Oh, dude, my ears, I had those bugs in my ears for the next 2 days. Coming off that thing. And then on the way out, he got himself a pintail.
Nice.
So he had quite a nice little mixed bag.
That's perfect.
An antelope, a coyote, a pintail. Can we skip this one?
Yeah. We can skip the next one too.
Well, I don't know. This is bad news. Can we just roll this into the other stuff?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all the rest
Corinne
of
has
it
two
is
headlines here.
waterfowl
Duck hunter
stuff.
numbers on the decline. So there was an uptick in duck hunter numbers during COVID, and then a slight decline afterward.
Right.
They realized how hard it was.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they had to go back to work.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, duck hunters drop out at around age 70, which means neither of our presidential candidates
Are going to be duck hunting.
are in the duck hunting mix. Minnesota mallard harvest numbers declining. Now, is this because of there aren't as many people out, or because of some other issue? You guys should be able to answer this.
I have a theory on it.
Go ahead. Okay, let's do a round table.
I think these mallards are just getting smarter, and when they're migrating through, I think they're just hitting the cities, and they just become city birds. You obviously can't hunt them in the cities, and I think that's where they're going.
During the golf courses, university campuses.
Well, yeah, I mean, just like town parks too. Like, I mean, even just driving around Bozeman too, there's a bunch of city birds.
We'll
all over the
actually
place.
get to that
Really?
in a
Good.
little while.
Jeez, man, that's great. I was talking about this with Matt and Brady here. We were talking about the way that if you go along the I-90, I guess it'd be 94 out there, right? 94 corridor, after goose season has been running a while, and you see like all the places you'd expect to see a goose, and he's not there. But they're piled up in the weirdest little spots. Basically, like they got 1 foot in the highway. They're in like some dude's yard.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a pretty smart approach to it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what I would do if I was a goose and all my friends were getting shot. I'd hang out somewhere like that for sure.
Yeah, like in the highway median.
Yeah, somewhere right on the shoulder, yeah.
What's fascinating is the population numbers of mallards aren't necessarily down. I mean, they kind of do this number regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been bouncing around, right, with those numbers. I think we went under 10 million this year, but the height was what, three years ago we hit like 13 million, 14 million. And but yeah, they basically cycle. A lot of it is cycling with the May ponds up in the Dakotas where they use some of that data to estimate those numbers. But then some interesting aspects is that it looks like some mallards are starting to overfly into areas in Nunavut territory further north,
further
where you're
north,
not
yeah.
where we don't have anybody checking. But I was moose hunting on the Yukon BC border, and they
When?
were everywhere last year.
Huh. Did you get one?
I did. It was great. I made my.
How big was it?
You know, I don't want to talk about it. No. It was.
No,
I'm
joking. I don't want to see it.
No,
I was just hoping you'd say like, well, how big was your moose that you just got?
Oh, you got one. Well, let's hear about it.
Well, I'll tell you. When you go to register a moose online, there's a drop down where you enter how many brow tines it has.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go
all the way.
No, you couldn't get there.
You had to lie.
The drop down didn't. It ends at 9.
You just kept going.
It ends at 9.
Yeah,
I couldn't. The number was not high enough to accommodate the brow.
So
tines.
how many brow tines did your bull moose have, Steve?
10.
Wow.
Oh, man.
One more than 9.
You did
This
it.
Go on.
This actually tees back up into the duck number thing.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
So Matt can talk about. We have a theory as well that I think.
Well, and it's
is
more of a
accurate.
question for somebody like yourself, Phil. Is so if population numbers continue to do this, but hunter harvest numbers are down, when you look at how they actually gather that data for hunter harvest numbers, they use a HIP survey, right? Like everybody has to, fill out a HIP survey.
I got 2 of those sitting on my desk right now.
Well, here's the thing about a HIP survey is they max you out. They say 31 or more.
To 100, yeah. Oh, is it 31 or more?
Yeah,
It's like
0
0
to
to 7,
plus.
8 to 11. What it goes up like that.
31 or more.
I'm
So how
always
are
in the
these-
31 plus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and most like guys that are going hard are 31 plus. But how do they get accurate numbers with 31 or more?
Yeah. Let me hit you with a couple.
can't.
Let me hit you with a couple stats from this deal that we're looking at, and then we can take off from there. So, for the first time in more than a half century, mallards were not the most common duck. This is from Twin Cities. What is this newspaper? TwinCities.com? What the hell's that?
Probably the Pioneer Press or something.
Okay. For the first time in more than a half century, mallards were not the most common duck shot by Minnesota waterfowl hunters in 2022. Okay. Mallards were topped by both blue-winged teal and ringneck ducks. Mallards had been the most harvested duck in the state since at least the 1960s. And that's coming from Steve Kortz, waterfowl specialist for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. So here's some numbers. 125,812 blue-winged teal last year, up from 81,000. So significant incline.
Big
up
time.
From 20. Okay, so we're talking about 22 and 21. In 21, 81,000 blue. I'm rounding. In 21, you had 81,000 blue-winged teal. In 22, you had 126,000 blue-winged teal. Ringnecks, check this out. These are like wild fluctuations. 21, you had 29,000 ringnecks. 22, 72,000 ringnecks. Wow. So there you have like, I don't know, over 2.25, whatever the hell. The mallard decline is not nearly as like, as a percentage, the mallard decline is not, it's stark, but it's not like as stark as its other declines. So, or other increases. So you had those big increases. Then with mallards in 21, 84,000 mallards harvested. In 22, 63,000 mallards harvested. And then wood ducks, it's kind of like wood ducks are like, wood duck number and mallard numbers are like nuts on a dog. I mean, they're right in tight. Like you had 84,000 mallards, 84,000 wood ducks, 63,000 in 22, 62,000 wood ducks in 22. That's kind of incredible. Is that just coincidence? That's got to be coincidence, right?
So the blue-winged teal, the reason that those numbers, my guess is you have to look at weather severity for that time of year.
Okay.
During that entire hunting season, my guess is it was a milder
Warm
season.
winter.
Yeah. So
Fall, I
those
should say.
otherwise
Oh,
those
so they haven't
blue-wings
split yet.
exactly. So blue wings, like if they feel a northern wind, they go.
Got it.
Like
Like
the
a
only
morning
reason
dove.
that they would stick around in Minnesota is it's not the weather severity is not long enough and it's not strong enough to move them. Same thing for the ringnecks. Although ringnecks are doing better now too.
Got it.
The interesting part is on the mallard side. That could be a hunter thing. I would imagine a little bit of that, where those numbers, because wood ducks are also bred in the state. I actually have a wood duck project right now in Minnesota, trying to ask some of those questions. But wood ducks are mostly bred in the state, so those numbers shouldn't fluctuate unless hunter numbers or hunter what's the word
Effort.
Date effort is not equivalent.
This throws out this hits max thing where it says it seems more ducks are avoiding Minnesota during their migration, at least when most hunters are in the field. Like they fly over Minnesota like peace.
Well,
That's
yeah,
it?
do they just fly around it? I don't think they do that.
I've
That'd
never
be a good
been.
ad for Minnesota. Hunters so not bad. Hunters so good. The ducks avoid us.
Ducks go fly over Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've just never been asked ever species-specific surveying
Oh,
on my hip.
Me neither.
No.
I've never been asked how many ringnecks I've killed this
How
year.
many
Or-
ducks?
Yeah.
well,
ducks
they
in
must be
general.
doing. I mean, they got some pretty precise damn numbers. They must be doing some kind of. They must be doing some kind of survey information.
Yeah, so a lot of those
And
surveys,
again, this is one state,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
of course.
Yeah, one state.
those will come from wing bee harvest. If anybody knows what, I think you guys talked about wing bees, where you a random number of waterfowl hunters in this country are asked to cut off a wing and send them in.
They hit
Yeah.
me with that for years one time.
Yeah,
that was a lot of paperwork.
It was.
A lot of envelopes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just kept shooting them, didn't you?
Well, yeah, it motivated me to hunt more. So
research.
Because I was like, I don't want these suckers to think I'm no good. So I was like, now I gotta go duck hunting because they sent me all these envelopes, man.
And
they're
then
gonna think I'm lazy.
On top of it, they'll have surveys at all of the WMAs or wildlife management areas where they'll be where you have to go in and you say, and they actually check your bag and they're like, okay, and then they extrapolate. You can extrapolate.
So they do model it.
Yeah,
Got it.
a little bit of that.
They have not like specifically counted all of these ducks.
I mean,
They're
if
model-
I'm in my backwoods shooting wood ducks and stuff, nobody's asking that, because you're right. The only other direct survey, is just a general number of how many ducks did you shoot, which is the hip.
Can I tell you a quick thing about wood ducks that's interesting? One time when I was a kid, we would hunt wood ducks in their roost ponds at night.
Mm.
And
With a BB gun.
At night?
Super effective.
I don't mean at night, but it's like
in the evening at last
I don't
light.
mean at night, but I mean
Evening.
like it'd be I'd hate to go there now and with a game warden and have him with a watch. Know what time it was. I mean, I do remember like we were like, it just was different. I don't know. We just weren't aware of stuff. But I do remember like marveling at the sparks coming out of the
of the shotgun
muzzle of
barrels.
the shotgun.
First light, last light, huh?
No, right at the end, man. And it'd be you'd be out with a flashlight trying to find down ducks, but it'd be like a great way to ruin a spot.
That is.
We had enough spots that we'd keep real busy for like 5-6 days, and we just blow every spot because it just ruins it. However, one time we were cleaning wood ducks and had a wood duck. Check this out. You know what his crop had in it?
What is it?
A bunch of salmon eggs.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was
Ah.
down in the creek picking up salmon spawn.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're. So I don't know that. So I have a study look at using DNA from poop of ducks
No.
to do diet. We're trying to do a different way. The original way is you go out, you shoot like 200 birds, you figure out what they eat, like kind of like what
Crop
you did.
analysis.
Crop analysis.
Yeah.
But instead, we're using DNA analyzing of the feces, and we're matching up pretty well so far with like crop. But we're getting a ton of the veg that you can't analyze because it's just green veg.
Mhm.
But the other thing that keeps coming up is fish. Fish keep
With
coming
woodies.
with all the ducks.
Okay.
And my hypothesis right now is that it's bycatch, right? Fish are putting eggs on all the veg, and they're eating the veg,
Oh,
and they're taking it
I
as
gotta-
bycatch.
Oh, they are not.
I got a picture for
fish-
you.
There's no way that they're
Fish or the eggs?
this was like a full fish.
No, you know what a salmon egg looks like?
Yeah.
No. This isn't bycatch.
No, I understand. That might be like actually target because mallards
This
do
is
target.
a big
Yeah.
orange
I
egg.
understand.
But you're thinking he's trying to eat weeds and catching fish? or fish eggs?
Fish
eggs.
eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're keep coming up with.
Now I'm back with you.
Yeah. Now we're with you.
I was pissed for a minute. I'm with you now.
Yeah,
Eggs.
no, eggs. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're in everything. Gadwall, widgeon, everything we've been studying. It
Because
keeps
it's all
coming
just
up.
stuck to the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's all stuck to
it's a
vegetation.
complete different calorie count that we've never really considered, as far as as I see it. So it's kind of interesting that the Woody. I'm sure maybe mistakenly got him, which is interesting in itself. But we've had mallards on bad diet in Minnesota. There's a paper out there, I think it's Minnesota, where they would go into salmon ponds and actually catch some of the fry.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why do you think that a duck isn't? Why do you think that a duck isn't selecting for vegetation that's coated in eggs?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just don't think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could be, but it would be. It just wouldn't make sense right now, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, you're telling me they're looking around at the veg, like, ooh, that one's got a whole bunch of eggs. I'm gonna eat that.
Yes.
They could do that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's what I would be wondering.
Because I mean, nobody's really tested that.
Because the caloric load would be
That
so
baby
much
is
higher.
calorie rich. I need to dive down and get that.
Yeah, because you've got things like widgeon that are specialists on just veg, right? So they're not even omnivorous, really.
Got it.
And they're still picking it up. So that's got to be bycatch. But you're right. I mean, this is completely new. That every time we analyze something, fish is 90% in all of the feces and.
Understood.
90% though too.
What's that?
90% you said?
Yeah,
wow.
Of the samples we've collected, and that's we focus on mallards, Mexican ducks, model ducks because it's in Texas, but we have sample widgeon, gadwall, other stuff that we've sampled as well.
It's in 90%. It's not 90% of the.
Oh yeah, it's in
Okay,
90% of the samples.
Gotcha.
Right, so that's a high. That's
some amount of fish egg.
Yeah,
Got it.
So,
You remember when they banned lead shot for waterfowl, which would have been what, 80? I don't know.
The good old days.
92.
90s.
92? Was when they banned lead for waterfowl?
Yeah, the legislation was late 80s, and then it finally went into effect 92, 94.
Were some
Around when
states
Kurt Cobain
ahead
died.
of it, though? It was when Kurt Cobain died.
Yeah, right around that.
I didn't know those were linked.
Checks out.
I used to tell people, but my understanding was that the reason ducks were ingesting a lot of shot is they were picking it up as grit for their crop.
That's correct.
Okay, that is.
Yeah.
So I've heard other people say, no, they're just getting it.
No, they're
So
going.
they were
going down.
They would pick shot for their crop.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of studies that showcase that it's all accidental pickup because they're going to get rock, right, grit, and it just the amount of lead shot at that time that was at the surface, at the surface of the lake sediment was really high. So the probability of picking it up was really high.
Yeah.
But then they did several studies where they just basically churn the sediment over, and all of a sudden they don't pick it up. And then obviously when the lead ban went into effect, there were studies 10 years later, 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, and constant decline of lead in waterfowl. So because the sediment kept dumping
burying
over.
the lead,
Yeah.
and the lead settled down.
So
'cause
now
it's
all the
heavy.
lead's way down there for someone else to have a problem with later on.
Yeah.
Speaking of ducks eating stuff, I was always amazed as a fishing guide. You'd be out there during just an amazing hatch. And I think it used to mostly be midges, I think, or mayflies, not so much the caddis, but you'd see those ducks get into an eddy where all those bugs would be getting caught and they would just be pounding
Mowing.
away.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, I thought you just ate like white bread and lettuce leaves. But no.
Well, the salmon fly hatch for the geese, I mean, you watch those during the salmon fly hatch.
Oh,
you see
really?
those big broods of geese up on the bank shores. They're just smashing salmon flies.
Seriously?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
man.
So cool.
Like if you ever hit the salmon fly hatch right, which is incredibly challenging regardless.
Hold on, Canada geese
Yeah.
feeding on those.
Oh, man.
yeah.
You see whole brood. I mean, you'll have, 8 groups of 8 or whatever, and they're just smashing those salmon flies. I mean, salmon flies this
Yeah.
big.
I'm not a squeamish man,
Yeah.
but when you open up a crop I never like to see. I don't like to see. I don't like to see critters,
Yeah.
especially because when you open up and they're still alive. You know, like you open up a hun, it's like
Yeah.
grasshoppers that are still moving around. In
Yeah,
there.
same with turkeys too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, dude, just come on, eat some clover or something.
berries.
before I
turkeys
get
too,
barley
right over there.
Yeah, I don't need to see all this. It's upsetting my meal plan. Phil, how'd you get interested in ducks?
Duck hunting. Yeah, so
Well, now walk me through. Take me back to Russia.
yeah, it was cold. January.
You never hunted
Russia.
ducks in Russia because you were
Well, I
probably
was
too little.
three.
You were 3.
Yeah, I was
So
3
you were
when we
born
left,
in Russia,
in Moscow.
talking Russian.
Yeah. So my parents, the way in Russia it works, you just drop your child off in the middle of the woods, and if they come back, it's okay.
Yep.
Yep, that's what happened. It was January, so it's cold, but I made it. No, so we got over to the States in '89,
Okay.
and I think I was telling you, choice of two evils: Los Angeles and New York.
And because you guys just weren't into the whole Russia scene.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know if you note this, but a lot of Russians fall out of windows occasionally,
Oh,
just
yeah.
by chance, and bear attacks every time.
Sure.
Yeah.
As we just learned with when
Bringing it back.
Why did I space
Yeah.
his name already? He was the most interesting man in the world for a few days.
The Wagner group.
Wagner.
Oh, the leader
Prigozhin?
of Wagner.
Prigozhin.
Yeah, airplanes fall
Like
out
when
of the
said
sky.
like Prigozhin, everybody's like, I wouldn't go near an open window. And sure enough. So yeah.
Anyway, so we got over, and then my folks obviously had to work, but then eventually my dad finally got enough cash and bought a shotgun, and when we went
Because
out,
how was he even aware that hunting was a thing? This is the thing I
He
was wondering about
hunted
my
in-
dad, because my dad was raised by Italian immigrants.
yeah.
And the journey of becoming even aware that this is like a thing you can engage in is interesting, right?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is Los Angeles has a lot of really great sporting clays area,
Okay.
and he hunted in Russia, so
He
wanted,
did? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I got
So
you now. All right.
So he wanted to do it, so he kind of got it. We started going to some of the sporting clays areas. Eventually, I competed there, and then
Really?
yeah,
How good are you?
I'm 31 plus on ducks every year. So
You always get to check it.
that's pretty good.
That's a great answer. He quits at 31.
Yeah. So there's a place called Salton Sea. Do you know where that is?
Oh, I know it well, yeah.
That's where I grew. So that's where we started hunting, mostly dove initially, and then started to hunt ducks. And that's where I shot my first dove when I was 10 with my dad's 12 gauge. And that was probably the most expensive shot ever because, that set my entire life forward of
Got it.
putting a lot of money into this sport.
Uh-huh.
And then we started hunting ducks, and I loved it. I mean, that's what we did. I didn't really get into big game because California is a hard place, especially without private property and knowing people.
I hear
and
this all the
everything.
time, but I have a little bit of a hard time believing it.
Look, I hunted A zone a ton. The only thing I got was a 2x1 all those years.
Okay.
I was real proud, and
As you should have been.
yeah, and it's just hard. And also, my dad hunted big game Russian style, which is a lot more driving with shotguns. There's no
Well, they're going to
rifles.
say with those giant Soviet helicopters.
Yeah. First you fly in one of those. So it was completely different, right? The way big game hunting here is. So I didn't really get into it until like 14, 15. So until then, I was duck hunting most weekends. In LA, I would tell them I'm just fishing because apparently fishing's okay. Hunting's not so much.
Mhm.
So
Like when you had to explain where you'd been.
yeah, where were you this weekend? I was fishing.
Yeah.
And so I got into it, and then that sort of set my tone forward. I went to undergrad at UC Davis up in Sacramento. One of the reasons I went there, besides getting in,
Hunt ducks.
is the hunting ducks. Yeah, Sac Refuge and all of that is there, so it's great hunting.
So did you know you were going to be a duck researcher at that point?
I didn't. I thought I was going to be the guy in Jurassic Park that brings back all the dinosaurs, and that's why I'm a geneticist.
Oh, you were interested in that.
Oh yeah.
Do you remain interested in that?
I am, but it's impossible. Although, so I'm part of, yeah.
It's not the way my kids understand it.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. So I'm on the board with Revive and Restore as well as Colossal, the ones trying to bring back the mammoth.
Yeah, are you on the advisory panel or the board?
No, the advisory, just like science.
Congratulations.
In fact, there's a meeting right now that I'm missing, but that's okay.
That's good.
So I am interested in it. But to be fair, I got into fisheries at UC Davis. So I was doing trout, Sacramento perch, doing genetics on them, creating captive breeding programs for releases and stuff like that, looking at hybridization between red bands and rainbows and all this. And then I realized, like, I like talking about fish, but I really like talking about ducks.
Yeah.
And so for graduate school, I went to Ohio at Wright State University. There was a guy there, had the money that I needed, told me I could do whatever I want, and it was perfect. And the only difference is that I became a whitetail hunter for a little while in Ohio. I never understood this field hunting situation. Eventually, I figured it out, but it wasn't for me. I like big open wetlands and calling, big spreads, these types of things. But yeah, and that's where I dove into waterfowl research, primarily mallard complex. So I don't know if you know this, there are 14 species of mallard-like ducks all around the world. Here in North America, we have the mallard, American black duck, 2 types of mottle duck, Florida and West Gulf Coast, and the Mexican duck.
And those are all real tight.
Sister species?
Yeah.
Genetically, yeah. So those are the most recently diverged group. So they diverged about 500,000 years ago. The rest of the group, the African black duck, yellow-billed duck, Meller's duck in Africa, a couple spot-billed ducks in Asia, Pacific black duck, New Zealand gray duck, Hawaiian duck, Laysan duck. Those are more old, about 2 million year old divergence. Yeah, so I started diving deep into it, and we're gonna start getting into some of this stuff that I am interested in. But more or less, what I do is I take genetic information, I ask questions in the evolutionary side, trying to get into nature.
Well, now you know.
And now I know. Climate change. And then, but I'm really big on management, right? So. And it's taken me over a decade to show how genetics can play in management, more applied aspects, and so how that kind of
you're gonna have to
data
explain what you mean by that.
That means when I talk about genetics to a bunch of wildlifers, they usually like roll their eyes back and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be about Drosophila or mice or something like that," because that's what they've known what genetics is. And so they are just like, that's not applied, band recoveries, telemetry units, habitat surveys, that's applied. Yeah, that's right. And so, we finally come to this time point where these new methods that I was part of developing and kind of bringing to the forefront. Lots of people use some of the methods that I do, but what it does is it allows us to get a snapshot of a genome of every individual for low cost and very quick. The turnaround times are quick enough that data can be attained within months and can go into models or anything else and actually feed into decision making. Before, genetics, you go out, you shoot a bunch of birds or collect them from hunters, and sometimes it would take 5-6 years just to get the data. It was hard. Computationally, we weren't there. Methodologically, we weren't there. And but thankfully, when I was coming up, all of that, computers, sequencing technology, all of that kind of like came to a point where we were able to do some real world questions and applications and obviously I did it on ducks. But if you look at what I've done, anything that's got DNA and some money, we work on. So
can you run tests real cheap when I send you bones?
Bones are going to be, how old are those bones?
Ancient.
ancient
Well,
bones.
I'd like them to be. A lot of times they're not.
I would have to.
I've gotten some
thinking.
disappointing results.
So
I'm always like, but it was so deep.
So we the best we've done, and I would have to go to my Smithsonian colleagues because they've got an ancient lab there where we work, and we did 500 to 1,000-year-old bones out of Hawaii.
Okay.
And
Duck
we were
bones?
looking duck bones, and
Really?
the fun part about this, in the same cave where Polynesians were eating,
Yeah.
there was a Laysan duck, a Hawaiian duck, and something they thought was a Hawaiian duck based on the bone morphology turned out to be a northern shoveler from Alaska.
Really?
Yeah.
And did they have
Crazy.
butcher marks on the bones?
I don't know. I didn't
Don't
get to
know.
look at them. Teeth marks. No, yeah. So we sort of the paper that where we're going right now. So something that we can do, we've got a study hopefully published in a year or so as we finish up. But we've got mallards now sampled from 1800 to today across space time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Where'd you get the 1800 mallard from?
they're from 27 partnering national museums. So thank you all.
Oh, did you get anything from Cornell?
We did.
Dude, we went to
Yeah.
Cornell. We were at Cornell, and they opened this door, and we're in their bird collection thing. And so, I asked like what apparently everybody on the planet asks is, you guys got any passenger pigeons? No, not pass. What the hell was? Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and an ivory-billed woodpecker. Everybody asks about the same bird so much to keep them in the same drawer. They're like, oh yeah, here's a drawer that like every like idiot wants to look into, and they open it up and it's passenger pigeons, ivory-billed woodpecker. Who else is in there? Just like the ones.
Those main ones.
Yeah, the ones where
right?
people are like, extinct species. Let me think for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh,
Labrador.
but
Did they have a Labrador
they had
duck?
a Labrador duck.
Yeah, that was the other one.
I think it was in that. I think that
It's in the
it might have
same
been
drawer.
in that thing.
The layman drawer.
Dude, it was crazy, man, to hold one. And the ivory-billed woodpecker, I used to dog on people. You know when people are like, oh, I saw an ivory-billed woodpecker. And then they come out and be like, ah, you idiot. It was a
Pileated.
pileated woodpecker. Well, listen. I know a lot of people spend a lot of time out in the woods. I could have laid that down in the woods and they would have said, oh, a pileated woodpecker. It's not. That is an excusable mistake. But point being, I bet they got some feathers if you hadn't thought of this.
No, we're
To get your genes out
I
of.
suggested to revive and restore.
No, I'm talking about the mallards. They probably got some old ass mallards.
Oh, they do.
out.
We
okay,
got
yeah.
8 of them. They're supposed to ship them. So we finished all the genetics. We're doing morphology. So we're doing 3D scanning of their heads to look at change in bill, so their feeding mechanism. And I'll explain why this is
Really?
important across time and space.
You've no doubt read the book, The Beak of the Finch.
I have not.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you might be like, it might be too elementary for you.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It's about.
We'll go with that.
No, The Beak of the Finch. It's about how you can watch the bill size on finches.
Oh.
You can watch the beak size on finches change in the Galapagos.
You can.
Like in, I don't want to say in real time, but I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, the Grants, husband and wife group, watched a new species evolve since they started studying Darwin's finches on the Galapagos. What happened was 2 species came on one island, bred, made this thing what we call a hybrid, but the hybrid was so distinct from its parents, the types of food that they ate, that 30 years later, genetically, they were just their own own thing.
That's what okay. This book might detail for a layman the research, but it was these birds are colonizing a new area with different food resources. And as they come in and they're like, whatever, they're trying to get into a seed that's a harder shell.
Correct.
Because they're in an area they hadn't been before. And you can watch selective pressures on those birds and watch their beaks change as they become accustomed to and have selective pressures applied around who's really good at getting seeds.
And that I think I had this conversation on another podcast about like evolution.
What do you mean another podcast? What?
Others? There's others.
Really? It's another.
He's done some podcasts.
Anyways, no, like people are like, oh, evolution, what's that? Honestly, the only name of the game in nature and what evolution is be as good or better than everybody else, right? So all you're trying to do is limit competition. And the good or better is that you either survive better and or have more babies, right? The more babies you have, the more genes that are on the landscape, and thus you're winning.
Yeah.
And so nature in island systems like the Galapagos are so interesting because it's so fast there, right? The pressures are like, nope, you didn't eat, you die. That's what we call a selective pressure of 1, where it's like, nope, those genes are gone. And so it's so much faster for adaptations to arise or go extinct because the ecology changes so quickly and everything.
God, I was going somewhere with that. The hell was I talking about?
Cornell.
Oh, no, I know what I need to ask you.
bones.
I want to get to this whole thing with mallards and mallard, like when you let pretend ducks go.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get to that. But give me an example of how genetics could play into management. Like, I don't get it. Like, give me a concrete, specific example of how genetic analysis would play into management.
Yeah, so I'll give you a study that we're doing right now. So the model ducks on the West Gulf Coast have been declining in size.
Okay, slow that down. Say that again.
Model ducks on the Gulf Coast regions of Texas and Louisiana,
Okay.
mostly Texas, have been declining.
Okay.
And the surveys they were doing. But at the same time, in West Texas, so the brush country of West Texas, have you been there?
Yep.
Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Lots of ranches,
You know that Johnny
big high
Cash, you know that
fences.
Johnny Cash song, "I've Been Everywhere, Man"? That's me and Yanni.
That's you, yeah.
In America.
In America. America. And anyway, so there's a bunch of brown looking birds. So if you've never looked at a model duck, it's a brown looking mallard.
Yeah, it looks like a hen.
Yeah, everybody says
Like, people
that.
mistake them, right?
Yeah, but the Texas Parks and Wildlife wants to do surveys to be like, okay, is this a population crash? Are the populations shifting? And for that, they needed to know what the heck these things are from an aerial perspective. So then they contacted me, and what we did was we took birds, we collected. In fact, you were having a discussion about, does anybody go out scientific collecting with a shotgun anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
With your fowling piece?
That's what we do.
You get to do some fowling?
In May. So we go out.
Can I come along and do that sometime?
I'm free.
Yeah.
Does that count in the survey
survey?
too? For
When you do your
31
hip
plus?
survey, do you put down...
No wonder it's
Those are
31 plus.
extra. No, so we need to have breeding pairs, right? So we took hunter harvest, we took out anything we could, but we needed also what is breeding in this landscape.
Okay.
So we went all the way from I'm from Texas, but I don't know anything about Texas. So like Dallas all the way to the Mexico Texas border, right?
Yep.
And so because there's another situation happening. Mexican ducks, which is another type of mallard-like duck, are expanding out of Mexico, kind of like a bomb out of Mexico into Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. There's even breeding pairs that we genetically vetted in Colorado.
They just fly right over the wall.
They just imagine that.
Yeah.
They don't need a
I thought
passport.
they would dig under. Anyway, so we did this. So we went from one end to the other.
Okay.
And lo and behold, both of them came in. And so on the one side, if you get all the way to about San Antonio and you draw a line, model ducks.
Okay.
Then something that we didn't expect but hypothesized, model duck, Mexican duck hybrids in this tiny band. And then all of a sudden, just Mexican ducks. So they're both coming in and interbreeding in this location.
So the model ducks are declining, but what's replacing them is
more model ducks and potentially these hybrids. So we
like,
didn't.
but what do you call the hybrids?
A Mexican duck model duck hybrid.
Mexican model.
But, okay, what do you
Mexican-
call it 2 generations later?
So that's what. So we're looking at how many generations they can interbreed. It seems like we're picking up back crosses, which means like geographically, if you're closer to the model duck group, you back cross into model duck and you become more and more model duckish.
I got it.
On the other end, close to the Mexican border, they're back crossing into Mexican ducks, and so they become more Mexican duck-like.
Yep.
But there's this band, this really narrow, what we call a contact zone, where it's just hybrids, which is completely new.
But they're totally healthy.
They're so that's part of the like diet analysis with the feces. We're looking at bill morphology, muscle fiber morphology to understand, can they still fly the same? Do they feed the same? What is there anything that would suggest these are less adapted than their parents?
Yep.
So anyway, so the point of this, to get back to your question, how does genetics provide applied aspects? So that data, right? So I plot all that on a map so everybody understands what's happening. That data is now fed back to Texas Parks and Wildlife to say, okay, we need to go in these regions to band because our probability of getting a model duck, because that's what we care about, is really high.
Yep.
And so we're going to ban there, but on top of it, they're going to be shifting surveys over and start counting those ducks. So again, a population decline versus a population range shift have very different management implications.
Yeah.
Right? So this is how it's feeding into that. And we've got studies in Hawaii, Arizona, all American Samoa doing similar things, trying to tell them what they're working with and how the genetics plays on the landscape.
Here's a question about genetics and how it's applied in management. Yeah. I'll start with a story.
Do it.
Years ago, it must have been in the early 90s. I was hunting ducks on the St. Mary's River, which separates Michigan's Upper Peninsula from Canada. And I remember getting checked by a state and federal game warden, right? I remember I was like, I'm sitting there with a hen mallard. And I remember them going, what kind of duck is that?
Yeah.
And I was like, the fact that he asked me that makes me think that that's not what I think it is. So I'm like, a black duck. Good. And I was like, sure.
Sure question.
I only said that because you brought it up. So if oftentimes you'll find when people are pointing out endemics, they're pointing out hybrids, it's like they're really down to the gnat's ass, and they're like parsing things out that to a layman they might not even notice.
If you don't know what you're looking for. Yeah.
So if you had to take like duck knowledge, like average duck knowledge on and then you put it on a spectrum of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And do you got to be like a 10.5 to go down to this place in Texas and pick up one of those ducks and be, wait a minute, this is a modeled Mexican hybrid? Or would it just be to a duck hunter, it would just be like...
It would be called a dusky duck because that's what they call them right now.
Okay.
So Texas, I think Arizona has a dusky duck limit, and it's usually 1 or 2, and they just say anything that's equivalent to a black duck, a model duck, a Mexican duck, I'll go here. Now New Mexico is under the hen mallard.
They're bundling black ducks, model ducks, dusky ducks.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mexican. What's the full name?
Mexican duck.
It's just the Mexican duck.
Yeah, Mexican duck.
Okay, that
modeled
duck, a black duck.
Yeah.
And
all in one, called dusky duck.
They're just calling them all duskies.
That's in the game rules. Yeah, that's in the hunting regs. And so
sell me on what you're talking about here. Like the mallard thing that we're going to get to, I get, but sell me on why this matters.
Oh well, I mean, this would matter if we don't find any. If model ducks are declining at the rates that they are in the Gulf Coast region, then Texas Parks and Wildlife is probably going to have to make some serious decisions.
But they're being replaced by...
Right, but if they're not, they're being replaced, which we didn't know. So now we have to understand, all right, so they're being replaced. They're not being replaced. They're making more, right? That's what a contact zone. They keep coming together, and it's like fringe. They're at the fringe of both of their ranges, and this is what happens. It's kind of like a growler. Grizzly polars on the fringes are starting to interbreed more and more, right? And so now it's a question of, all right, like, so we have this situation. Not only do my maps allow people who are really interested in hybrids go there, but also that it dictates, all right, so what do we do with these types of birds? So Texas Parks and Wildlife may have to have additional season or additional information for those areas, those regional areas. On top of it, what do they mean towards model duck or Mexican duck conservation? Like, how do they count towards those numbers? I can't tell you because they're the ones making the rules, and I'll leave them to that. But we're there to supply the information, the maps, the idea, the knowledge of what's occurring on the landscape, and they can then use that to make better decisions outside of just being like, they're all brown ducks. I guess let's just call them.
So were there human causes? Is it of interest because it's like human behavior, human landscape changes are leading to this collision? Because I could see that then you'd be like, well, now we're forced to pay attention to it because we're making it happen.
So that's definitely a question. So one of the issue on the Gulf Coast is eroding habitat. That's a thing, right? So the question is then, all right, so is that eroding habitat causing decline, survival and fecundity or baby making, and that's why we're seeing a decline, or are those birds just leaving? Right. So that was
because they're losing X thousands of acres of wetland every year.
Yeah.
Is it wetland or food stuff?
Both. I mean, it's wetland, and then it turns into food stuff. So, but what's interesting, as I was driving around West Texas, and noticing all these large, high fenced preserves that have really beautiful stock tanks and corn everywhere. And nobody there wants to shoot a mallard because they got to shoot that Neil guy over there. So my hypothesis currently is they're both moving in because the habitat's actually there. It's man-made, but it's there year-round. Nobody's shooting them, at least as far as we can tell.
I know one guy that is.
Well, in May.
But only a little bit. Oh, no.
Oh,
he's doing it a little bit on the in the places with the Nil guy and then the beautiful ponds, and you're like, my God, the ducks.
Yep.
They'll now and then get some.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and I walk around being like, that is all I would do.
So I would the funny thing is I contacted a bunch of landowners, and I went on some other podcasts asking for help. And I got contacts, but then I was in Texas, and then nobody called me up. So I had an outfitter out there.
What part of Texas are you interested in? I could probably help you.
It's more or less all of West. We went from, like I said, Houston, Dallas area, all the way to the
so west of that is I'm trying to figure out what
West Texas. Yeah. So if you draw a line, that way and all the way south, like that triangle.
Yeah. Well, have you?
Yeah.
I feel like I know. Well, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I know all kinds of people who'd let you go out there and do it with your following.
Well, they say yes, and then I'm like, I'm in your area, calling them, and nobody's calling me back because they're like, oh. And I told them I'd always be like, look, blinders on. Let me go to your pond.
Yeah, but what's that?
Birds.
What's the? Remember the guy we had? Those dudes we had on about the ocelots.
Yeah. Oh, what area are they in?
The Cleve. I don't want to name the name. Listen.
Yeah.
This is gonna be my contribution to American science. I will find you a bunch of places to go get your ducks.
Well, yeah, so that would be great because we have a few more. We have a few counties that are pretty poorly sampled.
Okay.
And they're right, we could shift that line of where the zone is potentially a few miles this way or a few miles that way by getting them.
Yeah.
And that would shift their.
Do you like to be close to the Gulf Coast though?
No, those are all model ducks.
You don't want to be
we sampled a ton of birds.
My contribution doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, we went from, to be fair, Louisiana all the way across.
Gotcha.
And it was model duck, model duck, model duck, model duck, and all of a sudden this new genetic variant, which now we know are these hybrids, and then it goes Mexican duck. So it's this very clean, sort of interesting story that we'll be hopefully publishing soon and figuring that whole thing out.
Can you draw a picture of Texas and show me where you wish you could be?
This is gonna be
I'm
a bad
pulling
picture.
up some. Where's that? 200.
Draw the little corn kernels in the pond too.
Yeah, just so I know exactly. Okay, there's Texas.
Let's do that.
I think
that whole area.
That's where you want to be.
I think you have South
Let me see that
Texas
paper.
access, but
Tip of Texas, going north.
Oh, this way.
Wait, no, that way. There you go.
So, Phil, can you turn this camera on?
Yep, we got it.
Here's Texas. I'm everybody points this out. Do you know that you could fit Texas, California, and most of Montana into Alaska?
Is that amazing?
Yeah, I don't mean to emasculate you Texans, but especially when I'm trying to hit you up. If you're in this little honey hole and you got one of them sweet ponds,
Call Dr. Phil.
Call Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, he's going to be like, homie, what? The other Dr. Phil.
You can also write the MeatEater podcast at themeateater.com.
And have the subject line be fouling piece.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways, yeah, so that was a long way of showing where genetics has come into play.
Mhm.
I mean, you got to understand. 10 years ago, I would go into a conference of it's called the North American Duck Symposium, called Ducks.
Nads?
Yeah, I didn't want to. Yeah,
It really is Nads?
it's called Ducks now. Okay, Ducks 9. Is it? It's
North
gonna be
American Duck Society? Your cup says Nads.
Yeah. No, I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm aware.
And is that like, are they recognize that that's funny or no?
It's no longer funny.
They made it unfunny.
Well, yeah.
The joke wore off.
The joke wore off. Yeah.
Okay.
8 conferences in.
Yeah. Nads
Anyways, yeah, so it's gonna be in Portland in February. You should come. Anyways, yeah, so some of the first ones that I would go to, I would be like, oh, there's that geneticist, that weird geneticist dude. Because they just didn't see the what it could do, what that data can provide. There's so many studies out there, right? So you're handling all these mallards and you're putting bands on them, and you're putting telemetry units. And a bird that stays in an urban setting versus a bird that does migration, you'll be like, oh, maybe that's just part of their population and their history. And genetics allows you to go in and be like, ooh, that one's a feral mallard and that one was a wild mallard. You're starting to have a better and a true foundation to what you're actually asking. So your future questions will be less biased.
Before we get into the mallard thing, do you remember, Brady and Matt, do you guys remember when there used to be, 27 kinds of Canada geese?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden one day they're like, nope, there's 3. Or
Yeah.
what is
Shrunk it down to
what is the
7.
popular number now? 7?
11 to 7.
11.
But there used to be
11
ridiculous numbers.
I think 11's pretty commonly agreed on right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
that came from you folks.
That came from me, folks.
That
Yeah.
came from your.
Well, so no, that's
really?
not true. You had this discussion with Cornell, I believe. So we folks provide data, and we're like, look at how different these things are.
Okay.
And then there's the American Ornithological Union here. There's the British Ornithological Union. Every country has their own unions.
Yep.
And then they use that data to say, should they be species? So they're the taxonomists that make the decisions.
But
to
they're
split
looking
it.
at what you've
They're looking.
supplied for them.
So the Mexican duck, this was a good example. Mexican duck was full species when it was first identified in 1890 something. Then everybody's like, oh no, there's lots of hybridization in the 60s. So they bumped it down to a subspecies of the mallard. Hybridization with mallards was the problem. And then years later, I came along and I started to use some of this latest and greatest genomic techniques, and actually found out that, all of these things that you thought were hybrids are actually juvenile or first-year males, and they naturally express mallard traits because it's still in their genetics, but they're not hybrids. And there's lots, and then we found lots of unique genetic signatures that are tied with a desert lifestyle.
Okay.
And so AOU, American Ornithological Union, used that information to then re-elevate them in 2020 back to full species, only recently.
So they got bumped back to being their own.
They are
duck.
their own full species. So if you've got, the slam going, you gotta come back
41.
there.
Is that
Yeah.
what it is now?
How many,
41?
how many
It
things
was-
are in the slam?
41?
Mexican
Wow.
duck's the newest one.
Yeah, so is
Yeah.
it 42?
I think it's 42. I'm gonna say it's 42.
How close are you guys?
I mean, I was like 8 off here for a while.
You're 8 off.
Yeah.
Have you
8.
closed? You've gotten all.
I
but
need
8.
like model ducks and tree ducks and that weird stuff in the south, the stuff
Whistling
he's
tree
talking
ducks,
about.
yeah.
Huh?
Mm.
Did you get them all stuffed?
But no, I don't have them all stuffed. I wish I did. I wish I would have done it kind of like our friend down the road, Mark Pierce.
Oh,
He's got them
dude,
all
yeah.
flying in the
Awesome.
same direction.
yeah.
It's like one big flock.
That's a
It's
cool.
amazing.
I would have
design,
loved
man.
to have started that.
Yeah,
but-
because I always think like I've gotten a lot of stuff over the years, just whatever, and I go in there, I'm like, no, I haven't.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just tough. I mean, back when we were really shooting them, even when I went to Alaska, I was there on a photo shoot, and I got to hunt a king eider, and I shot the the male and the female, and shot some scoters and stuff like that. But shit, man, I couldn't afford to stuff everything. Like you can't.
That's expensive.
You know, it's expensive to do it. $400 or $500 a piece to do it right, and
It's more than you got paid for the photo shoot.
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, you'd been running a deficit. So years ago, we were out in the East Shore, Chesapeake Bay, and we're driving down the road and we're going over a bridge. Okay, and I look and it's just like I even commented on it to my friend because it's duck season. I knew it was duck season, and we go over a bridge and there's mallards sitting. It just didn't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
And I even said to him, I'm like, I cannot believe that, just like how they were sort of occupying this slough and its proximity. I even commented, like, that just seems weird those mallards be doing that right in the middle of duck season.
It was, yeah.
And he goes, well, how much time you got? And it was, and I didn't know that it went on, that like the same way you do pheasants where you just like let pheasants out. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That there is a thing of releasing pen-raised mallards.
It's a thing.
And the reason I thought was because pheasants are non-native. And I thought it was that one of the reasons they're so widely released like that is because it's a non-native anyways. You're not upsetting any kind of wild bird population.
At least as far as we think.
Okay. At least as far as I thought. Maybe you can tell me otherwise. And so it just winds up being like, here's a species that is out there. They require a lot of human assistance. If you want to supplement with pen-raised birds, knock yourself out. Like you're not interfering with anything. But the fact that you could let mallards go was really surprising me. But then I've learned since then that it's somewhat a widespread practice.
Yeah.
And he said, when like this used to be, Chesapeake Bay was sort of, in some ways kind of like the birthplace of American duck hunting. And as bird numbers declined, it just became they artificially inflated numbers to maintain that. And what you're driving by is these hunt clubs, and they have mallards that are just hanging around in a way that just makes them seem like they don't quite know what's going on, and you've spent some time on this now.
I sure did. Is that the segue?
That's the segue.
All right.
That was a good setup.
That's good. That's great. Yeah. So, yes. So in a nutshell, that's more or less what happened. But I've sort of reconstructed exactly what potentially happened. So, if nobody here knows this, the mallard is the wolf of all domestic ducks, right? So, like the wolf is of the dog, the mallard is that to all domestic ducks.
You lost me.
All right, so Pekin duck.
Oh, yeah.
Rowan.
That's what you mean by the wolf of.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They pulled all the domestics off of mallards?
Yeah, just like you could get a chihuahua off of a wolf.
Okay, this is interesting because I always, what we pulled cattle from is gone.
Orc. Yeah, they're trying to bring it. Yeah.
Yeah, the orc is gone. What we pulled the pig from is still around.
Yeah.
Sus scrofa.
Yeah.
What we pulled sheep from, I believe, is still around.
I think so. That was out of what? Saudi Arabia, Northern Africa. That would have been red sheep. I think is the
ancestral one. What we pulled the horse from is, I think, gone.
So Revive and Restore recently cloned the second. I'm gonna say this wrong. Peswick.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the foundation species.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. The mallard is the duck that created that they pulled all the domestics from.
Yeah, so they were one of the last successful domestication events about 5,000 years ago.
No kidding.
So there's only three, the goose sort of, but the only other good domestication was in South America with Muscovies. But they kind of just look like a Muscovy.
That's how you say
Muscovy.
it? That's all.
Yeah. Either way.
Either is acceptable?
In my book.
Okay.
So the mallard, there's good writings about the Ming Dynasty was one of the first ones to start domesticating the process of domestication of mallards, and that was for food, right? Make them fatter, faster, making more eggs, these types of things. Now,
5,000 years ago.
About, yeah.
Okay.
now again, domestication is a process, so it ebbs and flows, happens all over the. Once it's started, then those things get transitioned. Just kind of like labs made themselves. There's English labs, American labs. There's all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so 1631 is the first writing from King Charles II asking his squires to go. No, I just add the squires part, but to go get mallard eggs for the purpose of raising and releasing for hunting purposes. So he was a duck
1631.
hunter. 1631. The name Game Farm Mallard was first, as far as I know, recorded in 1890s in England by people ringing them and calling them Game Farm Mallard. I'm going to refer to this thing called a Game Farm Mallard, but all it really is a domestic variant, right? It's a name. Okay. Just like a lab or chihuahua or whatever, beagle is a name. Pekin duck, rowan duck, runners, call ducks, all these things have names, right? So this thing is called a Game Farm Mallard because it was farmed for gaminess. Yeah. So what people were interested in Europe primarily at the time was to make something, flightier, something that flies faster and is, sportier. Than I don't know, than whatever was around. Just like a pheasant shoot, but with ducks, right? Okay. They're flying more erratic, more like make a mallard fly like a widgeon.
Okay. The objective, the same way a pigeon fancier wants to make pigeons that have all these crazy colors.
Correct.
They were like, breed me up a crazy ass.
All right.
We want to make this hard.
Yeah. Breed me up a crazy flying duck.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's move forward to America. So you
hold on 1 sec.
Yeah.
Did they in Europe? Did they do the tower? Is that what they're doing? Tower shoots?
They do both. They do. So currently, how bad? I guess bad is relative. I think is bad. So they do tower shoots, but they also release right before the season.
Yeah.
France releases 3 million of these things to have a fall flight now.
Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That was last year's numbers, I think.
That's a staggering number.
That's huge.
France cuts loose 3 million mallards?
Something like that. Like
Game Farm Mallards.
Game Farm Mallards. Things that you breed and you release right before the season, just like you would release pheasants, before Thanksgiving, youth, Christmas maybe. Yeah.
Well, there's another important distinction here between pheasants, though. Like the galliforms.
Yeah.
You like that word?
Yeah, I like it.
That was a trivia question at MeatEater Trivia that I got right not too long ago. One of the defining features of the galliforms is they don't really go anywhere.
Correct. That's
they have
the biggest
small
difference.
home range. When you cut a mallard loose, that son of a bitch takes off.
Yeah. So dogmatically, wait, can we go to America now?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So you're right. So the gunning years of the late 1800s, early 1900s, market hunting, was spelled demise for all our bird populations, including passenger pigeon eventually going extinct, heath hen going extinct for now.
Oh, we held one of those.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that, Corinne?
Mm-hmm.
They had it in that drawer I'm talking about.
The extinct drawer.
I don't think they had the duck. I think they had it was
heath hen.
Ivory bills, passengers, and heath hen.
Okay.
In the special drawer.
I don't totally
right by the door.
But...
I will note that my contribution so far is to revive and restore is so far just suggesting we should bring back the Labrador duck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I said I would get the first tag.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. So we are gunning years, population crashes, and so what did folks do? There's two things that are occurring. So if you don't know this, east of the Mississippi River was boreal forest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the mallards were vagrants, which means
no.
We're going
east
back.
of the Mississippi wasn't boreal forest.
Yes, it was
during the Pleistocene.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So
we're going there.
All right.
Because we have a very good distinction here. The east of the Mississippi, before humans started cutting things down, was mostly boreal forest. And the ecological replacement, which means the thing that is better than the other thing, to the mallard in that area was the American black duck. That is the reason it is completely dark, both males and females, because you could think of a boreal forest, an aerial predator going overhead. The selection pressure isn't to look fancy to the female because you're getting picked off. So now males and females have to look the same.
Okay.
All right. So there's a bunch of black ducks. Very few mallards. So mallards tended to still go into the southeast Atlantic flyways, the eastern seaboard. But the northeast, it was vagrant, like a cinnamon teal. Right? So you didn't shoot mallards there. But of course, so now let's fast forward to 1920-ish. Duck numbers are down. People are like, all right, what do we do about these numbers? But also that area was like, we want to shoot mallards too. All right, so
because Mallard is king.
There it is.
Big green head.
Big green head.
Tastes good.
Same thing. Did you know, did everybody see the story of the hunter? I think she was 1,000 years old in Nova Scotia. Last meal, mallard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chestnuts. Chestnuts and mallard.
Yeah, chestnuts and mallard.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this for a while. Everybody loves mallards.
Yeah. She was, what else did she had? She'd been eating.
Well, she also had a lot of diseases. I remember seeing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were saying her diet was.
I don't remember.
I remember the chestnuts and mallard.
Yeah.
Went out on a high.
Yeah. Pretty much. Anyway, so folks first tried to start breeding programs with our wild birds, mallards and black ducks.
Okay.
They didn't take because they're wild. It takes time for them to be like, okay, I'm gonna not stress out. I'm gonna make eggs, all these types of things. So that failed, but somebody must have known that the Europeans already got this right.
Let me ask you extra detail about this because you just said something that's interesting. They found the opposite with turkeys.
Which ones?
Well,
tell me.
Okay. When they started trying to repopulate turkeys
out of PA, those last turkeys.
Well, everywhere they recovered turkeys all over the damn place. But what they found initially, they were trying to use captive bred birds.
Yeah.
But the captive bred birds wouldn't take.
Yeah.
And then they eventually came to the conclusion they had to use wild bred birds.
Correct.
To distribute them around. So you saying that that they had an opposite experience with ducks, or am I wrong? Am I getting this wrong?
Because the point of that was actually establishing populations. Currently, they just want to make ducks.
Okay.
Right. So those are two different wants. Right. So
they're not recovering something. They're just trying to get something going.
Exactly.
I got it. Yeah.
All right. So they went. So someone must have known that the Europeans figured this out and brought game farm mallards here, and I'll explain how I figured that out. But so they started propagating them, and from about 1920 and 1960, they released about 500,000 of these things just in the eastern seaboard every year. And then 1960 to today is about 250,000 to our best estimates, but my guess is it's way more than that. So these game farm mallards still getting released.
And still of the progeny of these European birds.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
is this the state doing this, or is this just private?
Currently
people?
It's private.
Yeah.
When it first started, it was state, fed, private. Everybody was trying to raise them. In fact, More Game Birds for America. Do you know who they became? Anybody?
DU.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
There's a good trivia question.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know who James Ford Bell started? Which other one?
Delta Waterfowl.
Yeah. So they both initially wanted to do game farm mallards too. And Delta Waterfowl had their first thing in the Delta marshes.
What year?
What was it? 1930. They were still trying this stuff 1930s. Anyway, so but they showed that their premise was make ducks that actually make more ducks in the wild.
Okay.
And Delta saw that was a failing venture because they didn't survive long enough, didn't make the same because they.
So you could take these European ducks, these European mallards, cut them loose, and then the next year just no successful reproduction.
Yeah, you're going
and you
out
have to just
there,
cut them loose all over again.
Correct.
Yeah, they never took off.
So the dogma since then of why we continue to release them is that they are the other fun fact is everybody tells me that they're born here, they can smell their way here, and so they don't leave here. It's like their house, no matter what. And if they do leave, they die. And if they don't die, they definitely don't breed. That's the dogma that I was under, including when I was in school in UC Davis. I was learning about this.
Can you tell me that again? What the dogma? How
The dogma was that it's okay to release these things, sort of like pheasants. Like, look, winter's gonna come. The coyotes are gonna get them. Like, nobody's gonna survive.
Okay.
Right. So the dogma was these things are trained, quote unquote, if you can't see them, to stay on the wetland that they're made.
And that would help. And that posturing or that belief alleviated concerns that you're going to let this sort of like global Pandora's box out by taking this animal and it flies and all around the world and spreads itself everywhere.
Correct. Yeah. So that happened for 100 years. And I was studying American black ducks and mallards. So if you don't know this, American black duck, again, very close sister species or relative to the mallard. In fact, off the mallard tree, it was a mallard in North America, and then adapted to boreal forests, and over the last 500,000 years turned into what we now consider the American black duck.
Can you tell? I have such little experience with black ducks. Can you tell the hens from the drakes by looking at them?
Yeah. It's tough.
In
but
flight is really hard.
In flight is hard. No green head, obviously.
No, it's.
You have to have.
What are you looking at?
Bill. Yeah.
Oh,
and
the
also,
only thing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
And can't you look at the speculum too?
You can,
but
they're not supposed to have a white wing bar. So the white wing
that's
bar,
the hybrid in between
maybe
native and that's what I know.
Yeah, no, and your thought process was correct. U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So this is part of this study. We were saying like, okay, so we're at this wing bee where all these things and professionals are calling mallard, black duck, hybrid, based on those characteristics, the amount of white on them and all this other stuff. So we did the genetics on them. And one of the things, management implication, they're only 60% accurate at calling hybrids from either parental. The other percents were either should have been black ducks or mallards. And on the mallard and black duck side, 20% of those should have been on the hybrid. So those numbers are going into our models, right? Potentially causing issues in survival estimates, fecundity estimates, and so forth.
This is starting to sound like is when you show people a deer's teeth and they tell you how old it is.
Opening a can of worms
without cutting into it.
Yeah.
It winds up being like
that's a
maybe.
That's a 7.5-year-old buck.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but within that study, I started picking up this genetic signature that wasn't black duck and it wasn't Western mallard. So by Western mallard, I mean west of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
West of the Mississippi River, they're all this one genetic cluster. And then as you go east, this secondary genetic cluster that is mixed with the Western genetic cluster started to come in higher and higher abundance. And when we looked at black duck hybrids, they tended to backcross with this other genetic signature. So that was 2019. I knew the story of this game farm releases. And of course, dogmatically, I was like, I shouldn't look at that. Like, that's not a thing.
They don't go anywhere.
They don't go anywhere. And I saw that. I'm like, no way. So, but to, prove to the scientific community, and I had to go and get known game farm mallards. So I actually sent my wife to New Jersey and a couple other places. And we collected known game farm mallards from some of these preserves.
How did she get them?
She shot them.
You sent her out as a client. Did you really?
Undercover client.
Seriously,
I've heard these stories before.
I knew where this story was about to go. So
you sent your wife to masquerade as a client to bring you the ducks.
Well, on top of it, though, she was also giving me information of where these birds that she didn't just come to the pond go. And they all went to this location. And when I immediately, in real time, Google mapped where they were going, they're all going to a wildlife refuge.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. So they know where they're going.
God, it's like an undercover componement.
This is dark. I like
it. It's like a John Le Carre now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now so now we're back to Jersey. They're probably about to go kill me. So all right. So we had that. We had known game farm. Right. And then on top of it, I'm like, well, there's park ducks everywhere. And the nice thing is, we were banding Mexican ducks, and alongside them there were khaki Campbells, which is a different variant of mallard.
Okay.
So we had those. So were our proxy other park duck domestic thing, right? So if this genetic signature was park duck, we would be able to tell that, or if it was game farm, we would be able to tell that because we had that. But I also knew that people were going to be like, well, maybe Eastern mallards were always genetically different. So that's when I went to the Smithsonian and picked up mallards harvested from 1860 to 1915. So before all those releases. So I want to thank all hunters now from before and today that were depositing birds into museum collections. Natural.
Hunting is conservation.
Yeah.
There you go.
So we got genetics off of those birds.
Okay.
And so we compared everybody. First thing, that other genetic signature, game farm mallard. I was like, all right, so we know that. But were they always like that? No. They were the genetic signature of a mallard, 150-year-old mallard, was that which you have here in Montana.
Okay.
In the prairies, so for now. And this other genetic signature was causing the Eastern mallard to be completely different than what is Western mallard today and historically. So
is it acting different?
Well, that's where we're going to go.
Okay.
So our North American wild mallard has had that. The premise of that 2020 paper was that the release of game farm mallards had foundationally transformed the genetic integrity of a wild mallard. All right. So then I was like, all right, let's look at how this occurs across the world. And for that, we had to go to Europe, and on top of it, be like, okay, are our game farm mallards from Europe? Had to prove that.
So you had to send your wife there.
So I had to no, I would have gone. No, I had colleagues in Europe. They sent me a whole bunch of DNA and blood and all this other stuff from Sweden. Almost. What did we do? 12 countries. It's in that paper right there.
Can we back up for 1 sec? Your wife, is she a duck hunter?
She is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did she bring friends?
No.
She's just solo client.
I'm just
a
here.
bit strange.
No,
that
no,
a single woman shows up to the hunting club
Asking a lot of questions.
with her fowling piece and just like, let's go.
Well, wait. We also requested that the dogs handle the birds carefully because we were making a mount.
Oh, that's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a quick question backing up real quick. Khaki Campbell.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before. Is it? No, I see it. I'm curious if that is commonly known as a blonde mallard.
Maybe. So eventually we're going to get
and
into...
I'm not trying to like deviate. However, like this is
Yeah,
in
no,
my
I
mind
see
as
the
a hunter,
picture.
this is very interesting to me.
Yeah, because like the blonde mallard was always like genetics, and like it was just losing its color.
Yeah, we've always
Not
thought it was
losing
like
color,
it
but
was like a leucistic
Yeah, exactly.
mallard, if that's even a real
So
thing.
this is the domestic tree of life for mallards.
Because a blonde mallard is a prized piece for
Very,
you
very
know,
You should hold that up
a
to one of
mallard
Phil's
hunter.
cameras.
Here's one right here.
Might be a little out of focus, but
There you go, Matt. I have a quick question as well. So as you're talking about
Can't
east
see
of the
that at all.
Mississippi, so many of these mallards have game farm bird genetics in them. Matt and I have a lot of friends east of the Mississippi and in the southern United States who claim that they know ducks better than anybody in the world. It's a culture that prides itself on being duck hunters. Would it be fair, in your scientific opinion, for us when we are hunting with them to let them know that the birds that they so love and shoot are in fact
mutts.
genetically inferior
I think that's what he's getting at.
to what we have?
I'll let you make that conclusion.
Okay.
Yeah, just be like,
but afterwards,
your game farm ducks. The
can
game
you-
farm ducks you guys got.
can you write me a note after? or
Like
something?
sign it?
Like I want proof that like I'm telling you, the
From a
man
doctor.
said this.
Yeah, Dr. Phil tells you
Because I would like to have some
bragging rights.
some
Yeah,
black
be
men on
like,
them.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we're
like,
hunting
it's game farm,
purebreds.
Yeah.
it's game farm ducks, dude.
And they're
like no
mutts.
wonder you got them.
Yeah. I'd hope you'd be
Come on.
I'd hope you'd be able to get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys don't even need calls. You just go quack quack, and they
Well, seriously,
come over.
right?
Yeah. Okay,
Just like
we're gonna talk more about this.
Put white bread out. Actually, don't feed that causes them. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Oh.
All right. So so we were doing it. So where was I? 2020 paper. Yeah, so
you were global.
Global. So I also knew that they released game farm mallards in New Zealand. They stopped in 1970s or so, I think is the date. So
what was their duck?
we records show both game farm mallards were bought from Europe and brought there. That was the first time.
But did they have it? What native ducks did they have?
Oh,
did they have a mallard like?
Yeah. It's called the New Zealand gray duck.
Okay,
it's part of the Pacific black duck group.
But it's a mallard off.
It's like a mallard offshoot.
Okay,
yeah. So
It looks totally different though.
Yeah. All right. So we call this mallard complex. It's like a mallard complex, but actually the mallard was not the source for all of these other ducks. It's an African species, which was probably extinct, but most likely part of like the African black duck, yellow-billed duck group. We call it the mallard complex because we have a complex with mallards.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we
because everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like mallard. Oh yeah. Anyway, I had done a scientific collecting trip in New Zealand where we collected 400 birds all around the South Island,
with
North
your fowling
Island.
piece.
Fowling piece, yeah.
Did you do it
400?
out of season or in season?
No, in season, yeah.
Mhm.
Just straight up hunting.
It's called scientific collecting.
But, I mean, you guys are like
I want to be
decoying.
a scientist.
I'd really
you're
like to help with
decoying and
this.
calling, or
Well, that's how you get them in, yeah.
well, I don't know if you get some other thing like
No.
you're shooting them out of golf course ponds. I don't know.
No, maybe in Mexico we
Yeah.
did that.
I've been to New Zealand.
But you're like I would have looked and been like, those guys are duck hunting, but in
Yeah,
fact you were
yeah.
collecting specimens.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah,
fun.
so we did this whole thing. So I had a bunch of mallards that are so their population, I think their last estimate was also just about 3 million. So they're doing well. The question is, where did they come from, right?
Okay.
So we know that they had two efforts of bringing in mallards into New Zealand. One came out of Europe, and another one they came to North America and they bought mallards from North America,
Really?
assuming they were different.
Hey, when I was in New Zealand, I shot with my rifle a Canada goose.
Did ya?
Yeah, which are like wide open
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hung with a rifle. That's the same deal, right? I mean,
Those were Canada geese that were I don't know where they were brought from, but I'm assuming from the States. They
Got
just
it.
brought like
just
50
cut. They
birds.
just cut them loose. Same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know the moose that they brought there was I think Newfie.
They think they're gone.
Yeah, but every so often they like pop up.
It's become
Yeah.
their ties. It's
Yeah.
become their Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah,
I think,
So Phil, I was in New Zealand and I did a duck hunt as well. And their prize duck is the mallard, right? Everybody wants to shoot the mallard down there.
And would you look and be like, "That's a mallard"?
Well,
No.
so here's my thing. So I wanted to shoot Perrys because Perrys
Yeah.
are super cool.
Yeah,
What's that duck?
So
paradise duck.
a paradise shell duck. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Super pretty.
And
fascinating.
that's native to there.
Yeah,
Yep, and
Okay.
it's fascinating that with the paradise shell duck, not to get off subject, but the drake is actually black,
yeah,
and the hen is all colored up.
yeah.
I gotta believe it has to do with no land predators. But so I was looking at the mallard there.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool duck. So the female is the one with the white head.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the mallards there, and the mallards don't fly high. They fly really low to the ground, right? And so I was like, gosh, these mallards are kind of weird. They work a little bit funny over the decoys, work to the call a little bit different. We get them in, and I was convinced that the legs of the mallard were further towards the head than of the ducks that we usually shoot. And the only thing that I could come up with was that maybe on the nesting site, because they don't have any land predators, they don't have to like stand straight up. So they're more adapt for, hanging out on the ground and feeding and doing that sort of thing. But I could tell a very distinct difference between not only the way they acted, but the way they looked
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
New Zealand specifically.
I'm assuming you never saw one perfectly looking green head.
I mean, they all
They're-
looked the same.
yeah,
They looked different.
Yeah.
Not like a farm duck, but like different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So New Zealand had their source was game farm mallards from Europe and from North America. Another one I have a study looking at Hawaiian ducks and this issue with hybridization with domestic mallards there. So I had mallards from Hawaii as well. I thought those were going to be park ducks. So let's just like move forward into what we now know. Feral populations on Hawaii as well as New Zealand, source population were game farm mallards.
Okay.
The interesting thing there is both of those locations had a stop on release, right? So for 50, 60 years,
A formal stop.
Yeah. Right? So you weren't adding stuff into it. I know that New Zealand's like the best case situation to compare because it's at a larger scale, but they went with 30,000 birds. They had a drop in population size and now have 3 million. So obviously there was enough genetic variation, enough situation where they were able to survive through the like, oh, we have really bad genetics and then come out the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Now our work also suggests that they interbred with those New Zealand gray ducks, and it looks like they got some of those functionally important genes from them.
Got it.
Which is super cool. But the other part of it, there's no predators, right? That gives them time to be like, oh, we're really bad at life, but we'll survive long enough.
Yeah,
right?
feral cats are the only thing that kill them.
Yeah. And New Zealanders, as if you guys have been there, man, they like to just shoot everything off, like cats, everything. You know, they're there to shoot stuff. So anyway, so Europe, we were able to confirm is the wild mallard from Europe is the ancestor of all mallards, including in North America. Now we got birds. The only genetic difference was mallards out of Greenland. Don't know exactly what that's about, but it's most likely that a bunch of mallards went there and sort of like probably a long time ago and turned into, genetically changed through time. The important thing here is that game farm mallards from Europe are the thing that is here in Hawaii, New Zealand, and elsewhere. So this single lineage, it wasn't Khaki Campbell's or any other, all the genetics, this alternative non-wild genetics came from game farm mallards.
Yep.
So their release across the world at this point has resulted not only in feral population, but also just geographically widespread hybridization with local populations. And in our case, the wild mallard. So because that study was 2,000 samples. About 1,916 samples worldwide, about 1,300 samples here in North America, mostly Atlantic flyway, Mississippi flyway, and then we put about 400 birds, mostly from the Canadian provinces that go all the way to Alaska.
Okay.
All right. So what happens in North America is you have a decrease in this genetic signature east to west, right? Exactly where the releases are. So then if we zoom in where we identified hotspots, so kind of like epicenters of hybridization, this situation, can anybody guess in North America where the epicenter is?
Chesapeake Bay.
Almost, yeah. Jersey.
Ooh.
Jersey looks
Back
like
to
France.
Jersey.
Genetically. It's there
Really?
every
That's
time,
like
no
it
matter
too.
what year I go, Jersey will always have feral game farm. Now I have to explain
Where are they coming from there?
Some of the major release groups are there.
So they got like the duck.
It's numbers.
They do
just-
the duck stocking.
Yeah. So
Huh.
that location,
Mm-hmm.
and now some of our newer studies in the Great Lakes region is starting to find that the Great Lakes region is starting to look like Jersey and France. And these are 3 locations that are not doing great in mallard numbers.
This is going to bring back the whole freedom fry thing again, man.
So anyway, sticking with North America, just to give you some numbers.
Huh.
The Atlantic flyway, so we had hunting season, non-hunting season. So summer banding time. So like, what are we banding in the states? And we did it state. We have every single state.
Because banding's always done in the summer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's winter banding as well now, but the majority of the banding is summer.
Because when they're molting, it's easy to get them.
Yeah, you think that represents your production
Okay.
of
I
that
see.
state,
I got you.
right?
Yep.
So that's the production. So there's all right. So Jersey, Massachusetts, in whether it's hunting or non-hunting, I can't find a wild mallard. It's like 0%.
What?
Really?
Yeah, they're
Where?
all Massachusetts, Jersey, Connecticut. I'm missing, but that whole
You're
little
saying in the summer,
In the summer. What
You
they're
go,
banding.
if you in the summer, you go out to a state game refuge in New Jersey.
You're handling either a feral bird or a hybrid.
Thunk a mallard over the head. That's not a wild mallard.
Yeah. Genetically.
Well,
But
okay.
you're
Well,
funny.
I mean, I don't. So I
yeah,
guess
so it's not a North American wild mallard anymore. So New York's a little bit better. I think they were like 60, 40, 60% mostly wild, 40. But New York's an interesting piece because we now know that there is a substantial number of mallards out of Canada moving in to those states when we didn't think they were. So they're adding to the production. And what I can tell you is that Canada is more like Quebec is 60-40, 60% wild, 40% hybrid feral. I did want to mention.
now does Quebec have a history of cutting birds loose?
Not that we know of. No, it's a
So
push.
it's okay. So they didn't create this; it's just happening to them.
So that's the whole epicenter of what we find. So what a feral bird is a bird that is in the wild, right? They're not in the cage anymore. They're in the wild. I don't know if they're in the wild this year, last year, whatever. So I just have to call them feral, just like you would call a feral pig, right? If you let loose pigs and then you had no idea and you came out to some property in West Texas, you'd be like, oh, feral pigs, right? Because you had no idea.
But you don't know
where they
the
came
individual's history.
from. Correct.
He could be 10th generation
Correct.
in the wild, first generation, but he's just feral.
Right.
Yeah.
And so where you expect... so the epicenter would always have feral birds as well as things that are back crossing, genetically interbreeding with these game farm lineages. So you have things that are moving like between wild and game farm, but more game farmy.
Yeah.
And so that's an epicenter. That's Jersey. What happens as you move away from Jersey is it sort of dissipates. So these genes are being perpetuated through the landscape, but then what they're doing is eventually back crossing into wild. So they're becoming more wild. Now, the problem with Atlantic flyway in the U.S. side is there's no more parental. The average, if you go out somewhere in the Atlantic flyway, the average, just general average, some states are better, obviously. You look at a mallard currently, well, at least in 2023, currently 22, it's 2%.
Wild.
You drop a mallard out of the sky in the Atlantic flyway, it's about 2%. Again, some states are better than
Like
others. and all that stuff.
the feral ducks have effectively in these areas, they have replaced wild mallards.
More or less, yeah.
Let's say you're not interested. Let's say you don't care about endemism and you just like to hunt ducks. And you don't care about the genetics of the duck.
Yeah.
So let me hit you with the who cares. I mean, is New Jersey just kicking ass at duck recruitment?
No,
No,
that's the problem. So the Atlantic flyway has been declining 2% in its annual production over the last 20 years, just constantly ticking. In fact, they were down 480, 500. I think they somehow found
regardless of the genetic background, we're just talking like ducks.
No, mallards. We're talking about mallards.
I'm sorry.
We are talking about mallards.
Okay.
At the same
mallards,
time,
mallards, regardless of what you're counting, if you're like, there are fewer and fewer mallards there every year.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're dividing them into wild or.
Well, we didn't know what was the cause.
Yeah. But you know that
now we know.
They all have their heritage is all.
We now know the
farm raised
heritage,
and their numbers are going down.
So the next questions obviously doesn't matter, right?
Sure.
All right. So it's about 2% there, but then as you go to the Mississippi flyway, there's an interesting aspect, and we some work between Brian Davis out of Mississippi State, Rick Kaminsky, and others, Kevin Ringelman. We did a sort of like lower Mississippi. Alluvial Valley, if you know that area, Georgia, Louisiana, parts of Missouri. We got a bunch of birds there. And then I've partnered with Ben Lukanen out of Michigan State. Got a whole bunch, hundreds of birds out of the Great Lakes. And there's this interesting dynamic. You go south of Tennessee, 94% of those birds are wild, just wild, straight up wild.
Okay.
Go north of Tennessee towards the Great Lakes, it's increasingly becoming more and more game farmy. So current estimates, general, again, average 70-30, 70% game farmy, feral versus
out of the Great Lakes.
Yeah, and the Great Lakes is the next place where those populations have been declining. They're exactly those locations. So again, you could say, oh, you have no data for association of that sort. Sure. But my hypothesis is at least provide something is happening. So again, all right. So now everybody's on track.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Are you grabbing these ducks during the breeding season? Like
Sure. So yeah,
from all these different states?
Yeah, so that works.
So they're breeding.
The two separate types of sampling. So we do hunter harvest sampling.
Yeah.
Hunters are just, during the hunting season, we get a
Okay.
bunch of samples. But then there's banding crews, again, Ben Lukanen and his crew out of the Great Lakes, Doug Osborne out of University of Arkansas, Brad Cohen out of Tennessee Tech, and Brian Davis out of Mississippi State. They're constantly putting telemetry units and banding and all that stuff out of those
swabbing
states.
these birds as they
So then I partnered with them and be like, all right, just bleed them a little bit and get me that sample, right? We're not killing those birds. So then we have those two comparisons. What are we banding during summer? And then what are we harvesting? So we have those types of comparisons. So we're building those data sets to answer how does the mixture between Canada-raised mallards and U.S. mallards occur across the hunting time span. Because if you go to folks in the Mississippi, they'd be like, all our ducks are stopping in the north.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking about migration, and I'm like, how do you know where this exact duck came from?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was our question. All right, so we know this. So we publish these papers, and we know this like different population dynamics going on. So I partner with them, and we've got telemetry units on them, right? Can anybody guess, trivia, where those birds in the lower Mississippi Alluvial Valley are from, given their genetics of wild? I made a hypothesis, and thankfully I was right.
Midwest?
More to the west.
More prairie pottle region.
Yeah.
Prairie pottle region, yeah.
Exactly, Dakota. Every bird that was I think every bird, maybe except for one, that was a hybrid, went to the Great Lakes. And then And then the Great Lakes birds, do you think they have we have 4 years now of telemetry units tied with genetics, so we know what's happening. What do you think those birds are doing? Are they migrating? What would you expect?
Well, which birds?
Like Great Lakes birds, given that I told you about this like increasingly game farmy situation.
Yeah, they should be holding. They should be holding strong.
Where?
Somewhere up
city?
in the Great Lakes. Somewhere up in that region. Because they're not going to migrate all the way south.
Yeah, they do a random walk.
Yeah.
A walk?
It's called random walk. There isn't a straight path. Some birds go to the Atlantic, some birds go south, but then there's this wall in Tennessee that they do not cross. Don't understand why. Trying to figure that out. And they go straight back up. All of the birds with 30% or more.
So they'll scatter off in various directions.
It's more random. Yeah, it's completely random. It's not significantly different from random. Right, so the birds in the lower Mississippi have this like straight path.
Well, have you been able to watch any of these ducks and see what he does? Is he doing this? Is an individual duck doing the same thing, or is an individual duck doing different directions all the time?
Individual duck is doing random walks.
Okay, so in 2021 he does this. In 2022
they survive. Well, so it's these ones are all females. I wish we would put males because they're the males and waterfowl are the dispersing sex. So if you've got a game farmy male or a game farmy female, it's the male that's most likely to move the genes.
Got it. Got it.
But nobody wants to put telemetry units on males, apparently. It's unfortunate.
Because they always get shot?
Yeah.
No, because then you can look at nesting propensity, and all, and that's like the next. That's the main question that they're all asking. Like, these populations are declining, so they're always just like, okay, what are the females doing? Like, what is the problem with these females?
I understand.
I have a timeline question because I'm just kind of tracking what you're saying. So boreal forests go way back. You had said that there was no mallards in the
Vegas.
northern Atlantic
Northeastern
region.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
That there was a bunch down south of Tennessee. Naturally, there was a bunch of wild down there already. There was none up in the New Jersey area.
Yep.
So they brought them in. We have the American black duck who's not getting messed with what's going on here. And now all of a sudden there's mallards again, it kind of goes back to the who cares. Like now all of a sudden we have a bunch of
like,
mallards
yeah.
there that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
And they weren't migrating in because they're staying in Canada or coming around the Great Lakes or whatever. So like that region there's a population that was never there before, and now it is. And yes, it's a game farm mallard. So is it more the widespread of that's the issue, or is it?
It's the spreading.
It's the spreading that we don't like, because
No,
having a mallard in New Jersey seems like it's a success story.
Yeah, but when you say that all the mallards in New Jersey are game farm mallards, but was there ever a difference? Meaning they went from no mallards to just only game farm mallards.
So I hope to answer that question soon with those 1,800. So we redid that study. We have 800 historical samples from 1800 to today to answer that question. How did it happen? We know what we have now.
But you know where the
whether it's
samples came from.
And we know exactly where the samples came from, what the dates, location, all
So
that.
there were mallards that got killed out of New Jersey in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some
We have
number.
that. Some number, yeah. Yeah. I mean, people still shoot cinnamon teal in there every so often, right? So these things got collected. I'm sure at that time you shot a mallard, you're like, oh man, put this thing into the museum.
You were surprised.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
So,
Like some strays would go through there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So now we're seeing these migratory differences that at least to some extent are genetically associated, because we have this nice association of an individual and it's very weird. Don't know why yet, but 30% or more game farm makes them do weird things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we have sort of this like situation. Oh, the other thing is birds in the Atlantic flyway had a connectivity to the Atlantic flyway. There's birds that are interchanging. So the question is like, why is there increasing game farm in the Great Lakes? Is it people releasing them?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just this like kind of ebb and flow between the Atlantic flyway and the Great Lakes region? Kind of this natural, semi-natural ebb and flow. That's the question that we hope to answer.
Are there people releasing, if they're releasing them, they're not supposed to be?
That's a state by state kind of situation.
Well, I mean, how would you not know if they're releasing them in the Great Lakes?
Nobody's keeping track of that, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So someone could be, I mean, the Great Lakes is, I don't know what it is, 5 or 6 states, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
So Michigan, are there are not, to your knowledge, there are not places in Michigan that like advertise that they're dumping mallards.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay,
yeah. So the genetic signatures that I see there make me believe that people are, because it looks like Jersey, it looks like France. Then the whole thing is like, these things have a low survival, right? So a colleague of mine in Sweden kind of did a survival estimate. They said like 3%. But look, 3% of 500,000, 250,000 or 500,000 or more throughout time is more than enough.
Yeah.
Right. And it isn't really that. It's the trickle effect. It's the added every single year. You're continuing to move those genes into the population over and over and over. We can go back to rainbow trout. So the fisheries are far ahead of what we do, where we are, because they've been studying this. It takes only 3 generations for rainbow trout to be in a stock tank, for 50% of the eggs to be inviable. Because what happens
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And the same thing with quail. Only 3 or 4 generations of being in captivity, the viability decreases that much. And the reason for that is because everybody wins in a cage, right? So you're perpetuating these genes that would have been lost every single year by natural processes in the wild. But now you're putting them into the wild.
You know, the Unabomber got into this.
Oh yeah.
You ever read the Unabomber's manifesto?
I know the Unabomber. Yeah, no.
Well, I'll just give it to you.
Oh my
real
God.
quick.
I didn't see this coming.
He rates levels of difficulty 1 to 5 in his manifesto, and he's like, 1 is I can't remember if it was inverse or not, but let's say 1 is try as hard as you can, you'll never succeed. Okay. 5 is you don't even need to try and you'll succeed. His deal is that technology, that human survival used to hover like at the 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
You got to try pretty hard.
Yeah.
If you try pretty hard, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Now, you can do the opposite of try
You just sit there on the
and
computer.
just be fine.
Yeah.
And that's part of his gripe with technology. everybody wins in the cage.
Everybody wins.
So
Yeah,
and then he tied that to all the neuroses, and you know what I mean.
I'm with you.
There's nothing cleaning anything out anymore.
Title.
Yeah.
Corinne title.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got away from. We don't do good titles.
This is the second podcast this month where Steve's made the guest uncomfortable by being kind of like pro Unabomber.
No.
Yeah, you've
I'm not
mentioned
pro
it
Unabomber.
before.
I'm not at all pro Unabomber. It's just
Just bringing it in.
I'm not pro Unabomber at all. I took a class in college called Political Rhetoric, and we read political rhetoric, everything from Dr. King, Camille Paglia, the Unabomber. Like we read it all, and I think a lot of people know about the Unabomber, but not a lot of people had to read the Unabomber's manifesto.
No.
So you had to read the Unabomber's manifesto.
Are we going to talk about Charlie Manson now?
We didn't read anything by Charlie. I'll have to write Dr. Gillis a note and tell him that he should have had some Charlie Manson writings in there. But no, I'm not pro Unabomber, but it's just he had like motivating thoughts.
No, yeah. I mean, in a
Agree
cage,
with them or not.
in a cage, everybody wins. I mean, I teach similar things, right? Is it not Unabomber things? I teach, like, look, humans. Everybody is surprised always that the effective population size of humans is 10,000 people. That's how many people there should be. And it hasn't changed. And everybody's like, well, why is that? That's because genetic variation doesn't come up that fast. Our population's exploded only in the last 200 years, really, right? And so for 99% of our history, we were at an effective population size of 10,000 breeding pairs. And that's what the Earth was more or less okay with. And so
There was a stability.
There was a stability, and society, domestication, all of these things allowed that populations to grow. But it's only that, God, I got lost of where I was going with this. But I'm going to it is because, I
threw you off that Unabomber shit, didn't I? Yeah.
Society is
Derailed you.
Society is our cage.
Yeah.
And it becomes, we go further and further to the 4 or 5. Well, earlier on, as long as you were kings and stuff like that, you were really at a 5. Everybody else was still kind of at a 2. But,
yeah. So what's the if the situation goes and continues to happen?
Yeah.
Do you picture that? Do you picture that they'll continue to move westward?
That's exactly
because there's some amount of stray, like
exactly.
Like when I look at the salmon, a lot of salmon make a wrong turn.
Correct.
And that's how they colonize new rivers.
Correct.
Like they just go up the wrong river. Most of the time they do that. It doesn't work out. Now and then one does that, and he's like, "Sweet."
Yep.
And
yeah.
then,
No. That
lo and behold, a new salmon stream.
No. Absolutely. And that's exactly what's happening. It's we Ben Seninger and I looked at banding data we recently published in Journal of Wildlife Management, and we saw that there's a 25% emigration rate, so leaving the Atlantic flyway on the U.S. side into the Mississippi. So this is one way that things are moving west, and so most likely what's happening is those genetics are coming over, they're pair bonding with something that goes to the prairies, and they're moving it into the prairies.
Yeah,
and that is exactly what we're seeing through time.
And that'll jump to the Rocky Mountain. That'll jump to Pacific.
The unfortunate thing is, so getting back to, is this a bad thing? Let me preface this. So study between Michael Schumer at SUNY ESF and his master student, Susanna Hellegren, Brian Davis out of Mississippi State, Ariel Fournier with Forbes Biological Station.
This is very generous. It's very
Canola,
generous of you to do
aviaries.
all that. It's like someone receiving an Oscar.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody. As well as California Waterfowl Association with Caroline Brady and Brian Huber. All right, I got all those out. So we did a study. We wanted
you can't be like, well, what I did.
Yeah, I on this silver tower by myself. No, that's not how I work. I'm like, we got to get this, stuff. I almost said, the S word, stuff done. And I work by bringing in the people who know how to do it quickly, and that's what I do. So anyways. So we're like, okay, we need to get wild strain birds and game farm birds into captivity to test. Like the first thing that we started seeing is their bill. And we're like, this bill on this game farm mallard sure looks like it's better at pecking than it is at straining. So we had a hypothesis that in captivity, where you throw grains out, potentially over the last 400 years, we've been selecting for things that can A, run over to that, and B, peck at it.
Huh.
And so we're like, all right, let's see what this looks like. So we got birds out of California, and this gets back to your comment about going west. And I'm like, oh, for sure those are wild birds. And lo and behold, there's game farm mallards there. Somebody's releasing them in California. Unfortunate.
Really?
Didn't see that coming. So I called up some friends, and they're like, yeah, there's some people. I don't know who
Then
they
you
are.
sent your
but-
wife in?
Really?
So now I'm going to have to send my wife back to California. Anyways, so we brought these in captivity. We genetically vetted everyone, meaning we did, Ancestry.com on everybody. Knew everybody. Okay, these are hybrids. These are wild. These are the game farms. On top of it, by doing this, we got game farms from like other states. Everybody, same exact genetic signature. Still old world, Eurasian signature, right? Still from over there. So we brought them in. And what we were doing were these feeding trials. And what we would do is we would take the individual and we would give them food, wild seeds, what they would actually eat in the wild, in a bowl, and we would force them to strain it, right? And then we would see how much food was left over so much time.
Mm-hmm.
To the crux of it, we found that game farm mallards are 50% inefficient in eating wild seeds, straining wild seeds as a wild mallard. And the worst of them were female game farm mallards. So that means in the wild, you can extrapolate this to they need twice as much food and twice as much time to get the same calories.
Got it.
On top of it, anecdotally, because we were just watching this, you could go into a cage and be like, that's a game farm female. Because what would happen is every day there'd just be eggs randomly placed places. There, at times she would make a nest, but it would be like half made, right? So like she has been transformed to be a chicken. Because in domestic settings, you don't want them to nest. You want them to just poop eggs out, and you put them into your incubators. Wild bird, you knew exactly what it is. The nest is there. There's almost never an egg because they're stressed out, right?
Huh.
So anyway, so now we have this association of genetics, morphology, and now it's causing issues on their ability to feed. On top of all this, what we found out is what's happened is they actually have made these things flightier. So you have a mallard about the same length, but the wings are shorter, the legs are longer, so they run faster. Or that's when you see the tarsus get longer, it's what you see in island species where they become more terrestrial.
Yep.
So
spend more time on the ground.
Exactly. And so, but the wings are shorter. That was an interesting one because I had to go to our aeronautics team. I was like, what does this do? And they're like, oh, you took a jumbo jet and you put fighter wings on it. You made it flightier.
Mm-hmm.
So these things can maneuver at faster rates. But here's the kicker. When we finished our feeding trials, we put them back on Purina chow to get them fat. And the hybrids...
You mean literally...
Purina chow.
Okay.
So a high protein diet to get them back to fat because we wanted to know what they would do. And anything that had 30% more game farm or just straight up game farm almost never put fat on. They just stayed the same. So they're like a 900 gram bird. Whereas a wild mallard at full fat, you're looking at 900 to 1,200 gram bird.
They're not getting properly geared up for
they can't, and that's physiologically, they do not put fat on, it seems. Again, anecdotally, just because of what we've done. Wild mallards, you put them on Purina chow in 4 days, they're like 1,200 grams, right? They're putting that fat on just as you would expect. So now let's put all this into a winter situation in Michigan. A freak storm comes in, you got a bird with no fuel, shorter wings that can fly fast but can't migrate far,
mm-hmm.
And would have to refuel almost every stop, right? That's a bad thing. So now going back to the telemetry units, what did they actually tell us? That. So not only are these females, we've had females with 30% or more game farm in them, they had a statistically significant, I'm pretty sure I'm saying this okay, statistically significant abandonment of nest.
Okay.
Statistically significant tied to urbanization, and they were the ones that are doing the random walk. And that's big. And when we looked at stopover rates, they had statistically significantly higher rates of stopover. These things are burning fuel, and as they hopscotch across the country, so they can't go very far.
So they're
before
going
out of
city
fuel.
to city almost.
That's the random walk. And that's why they come back.
Campus to campus.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I gotta go back to bread lady,
Yeah.
refuel. Except bread gives ducks angel wings, so don't give them bread. You actually are killing them by giving them bread.
Really?
Yeah.
So if they had just done one of these introductions 50 years ago,
Yeah, it would have been swamped out by the wild.
because of all these problems.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're just doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, and once it's in there, it doesn't go away.
That's
right?
that's the New
Yeah.
Zealand situation where you had inundation. You put these things out there, and then you like let's see what Mother Nature basically would do.
Yeah.
And obviously but again, an interesting situation. It's an island ecosystem. There aren't needs for migration because seasonality isn't the same. No predators. All these. It's sort of like a perfect situation.
Yes, you're not
same as
dividing.
Hawaii.
It's not this like complex web of all these
Correct.
intercontinental parallel migration paths.
Exactly. And so what we know now is that at minimum there are physiological, morphological, which means like their build, their body, all this stuff, and physiological. I forgot. So when we started seeing some of this changes in migration, I have a master's student, Nico, who's working on getting muscle fibers off of the ducks of these different genetic heritage, looking at I might get this wrong, quick twitch or slow twitch muscle fibers. So you would want quick twitch for faster movement, slow twitch for that elongated migration pattern is the hypothesis. And we're seeing exactly that these birds have higher proportions of quick twitch as compared to or fast twitch versus slow twitch. That's it. The more more fast twitch in the game farm mallards as compared to the slow twitch in wild mallards are doing these long distance migration and able to make these long distance migrations. So basically what this game farm mallard is a fighter jet that goes really fast, short bursts, and that's about it. But that's what we bred it for, right? That unintentionally or intentionally, we got what we wanted.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So when I hear this is from my perspective, it sounds a little doom and gloom, right? Like we're screwed. My question is, with all of this data that you have right now, is there legislation in place or being pushed to stop game farm releases? And even if they did, let's just say, you're king of the world, you waved a wand, there's not another game farm bird released in North America today. Are we screwed? Like, is this going to eventually be fully bled out as it gets into the West and other regions of the country?
I got a solution.
Go ahead.
Well, to Brady's point, if the new ones were to end, I mean, can you start bringing ones from the West and cutting them back loose?
Right. I mean, that's what it looks like, right? If they're so weak that they're not going to be able to withstand the winters and they're not putting on the fat, etc. I'm just curious, like forward looking, what's the play here?
That's a great question. More data?
He's not a policy guy.
Yeah, that's right. I am not allowed to comment on those kinds of questions.
What do the policy guys think about it?
What
Are they
think?
interested?
I am not allowed to comment. I do not comment. I don't know about the Atlantic fly.
Don't give me you don't comment on the policy.
The Mississippi Flyway has reached out. They are supposed to be putting a comment out being like, we do not support this, I believe. I'm not speaking for them. Mississippi Flyway.
Birds.
The game farm.
Yeah.
What about the Atlantic Flyway people?
I don't know.
What about the USGS?
I feel like you're pleading the fifth right now.
Yeah.
He definitely is.
Okay, let's say you said
Wait.
no. Hold on a minute. Let's say you said exactly what you think. What would happen to you that was bad?
All right. So like everybody.
No, pay attention. Listen to
flyways-
the question.
Yeah, the flyways ask me if this is going to be like, how do you know if it's going to be bad? I
Okay.
won't know until it happens. But we can easily go back and ask, well, what happened with all the fisheries and quail releases and pheasants and anything else we've tried to release with captive bred birds that have been domesticated for a while?
Like the track record's not great.
Not great. And all of those signatures are popping up, not just here, but like we can just look at what's happening in Europe, right? So France is releasing a few million birds just to have a fall flight. You know, and they have complex ecologies, right? They have needs for migration. They have seasonality, very similar to us. So given the situation there and the constant inundation, the probability of the same situation happening is high.
What's that mean?
We're like really close to beyond at a time.
Oh.
All right.
Sorry.
I feel like we could talk about this for 5 more hours.
Yeah. Who, you work for the university.
I do.
Okay. We had a USGS guy on a long time ago about grizzly bear.
Yeah.
His job was to count. His job was to tell people how many bears are there. But he's like, my job is not to tell you what to do about it. I'll tell you how many I think are there. But what you do with that is your business. You're not held by that. You're a university guy.
Yeah, but I work with every state and federal agency in this country and in Canada. And, you know, I leave it to them. I provide data and they do what they want with
Are
it.
you tenured?
I am.
Huh?
I am.
Oh, well, then let's hear it.
Let's cut it loose.
I
What do you really think about a guy like Janis?
Yeah. So people ask
we gotta
me.
wrap
I
it
know,
up.
I know.
We gotta
People-
do trivia.
I've already done trivia with you guys. Like right here.
You did?
I asked you questions.
A couple questions.
Oh yeah. Well, okay.
I think-
Anyways, yeah. What do you do? So we have a project in Hawaii. I'll wrap it up quickly. Like where we're testing this. Can you artificially move back a hybrid population towards something different?
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. So in Hawaii,
Can you?
we just got funding. Although we're $250,000 short. If there are any donors on this podcast, please contact me at Lavretsky@utab.edu. Anyways, so we are actually going to try. We know exactly the population. It's on Oahu. We're going to try to move pure Hawaiian ducks into this hybrid population and see generationally how many generations does it take for us to get Hawaiian ducks again. So it's kind of like a pseudo-genetic rescue thing. Our models suggest it's only 3 or 4 generations. So that's 3-4 breeding events, and we'll have pure Hawaiian ducks again. If that works, like that's a closed system, right? We can control so much of that. If that works, then we can extrapolate what would we have to do in North America to turn the tide.
Got it.
Now, the prairie, the significant size of the prairie pothole population is what is stopping this thing from just constantly moving west.
Got it.
Because it's essentially
Because you're in a mallard stronghold.
exactly what happened in the east. Hypothesis now, hopefully I'll have data with all the historical stuff, is that there weren't that many to begin with, and whatever was there, you essentially bred out, right? And so now it's just these hybrid thingies. And you're constantly putting it in where Mother Nature can't just be like, all right, let's just keep some of this wild in there.
Yeah.
Because you're just constantly pushing it in. And so again, I don't think it's gloom and doom. The Atlantic Flyway, I'm not. You're right. Like, there's no parental population there. You would have to
Create one.
create one.
I lived in that flyway for a couple years. It felt like doom and gloom when I was there, so
Did
I'm
it?
glad to be here.
Now you were mentioning the Chesapeake Bay and that those ducks are funny. Now you know that
They are funny.
They are funny. Their behavior, everything about them is just, it looks like a mallard, but it's a Chihuahua, a dog.
Okay,
Chihuahuan dog.
we're gonna close with a role play. We're in a hotel bar. I don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
Okay. And I got no way of finding out about you. And I'm just thinking out loud in this hotel bar. And I'm like, man, I live in New Jersey. I'm thinking about getting into this whole deal of turning game farm mallards out. 'Cause I like to hunt ducks. You're just a stranger. What do you think I ought to do?
Don't do it.
That's what you'd say?
Yeah. Dr. Phil says don't do it.
Oh, Dr. Phil says, I was giving you anonymity as just a dude in a hotel bar.
Yeah.
I caught you in a trap. So you did tell what you
Oh
think.
God. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's now sort of a pastime, right? In a lot of part of this country. I'm not going to say like, oh, let's shut it all down. But what I can say is our maps, our data flow are so at nice fine scales that there are management actions that we can have. Like, for example, you have a place that is releasing, and we can find these hotspots for any state and be like, okay, we're going to have special seasons in September. We're going to allow you to shoot 10 mallards or whatever it is. When you're there, you're just basically trying to push that 3-4% survival rate to zero of mallards coming out of there. That's what I would suggest. You're not going to shut this thing down. Like, it's a moneymaker. Like, are you going to really? No. But there are things that we can do, I think. And I think that segues to, can we segue to duck DNA now?
I was gonna say,
Dude, we got to segue to being done.
No, that's the done, but it's an action item for duck DNA.
Oh,
like
I'm sorry.
1 minute, and then we need it. Phil's gonna pull the plug.
So
Literally.
Where's the plug, Phil?
I mean, it's just one right here that can just end the whole
Phil's
thing.
got a master switch.
Twitching.
So this is a citizen science project
Okay.
that has been in my mind for almost a decade. Mike Brazier and I have been talking, who's with Ducks Unlimited over the last couple of years. And then we went forward with this thing called Duck DNA. Go to www.duckdna.com.
You got the URL, Duck DNA.
Duck DNA.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, to DU. So DU, I have to thank Ashley Tunstall, Kai Victor, DU Communications Department, IT Department, and Development.
This is where I play the
And of
music.
course, Mike Brazier. And my crew, Virgie Muncie, Lauren McFarland, Sarah Gonzalez, they're all working right now as we speak to get this thing going. So this is everybody go to duckdna.com and sign up today, and you will get a kit with 5 vials, and you could put a tongue in that vial, and we will tell you the ancestry of that duck. We will
Really?
be using it for research purposes, but you will get a certificate.
Did you bring any with you?
Congratulations. I
Yep,
did.
we do.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh,
For
my
you
God.
I'd give
guys.
some to these
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were supposed to do it on air.
You're gonna
where
need to
I'm
get
like-
you're gonna need to get a warehouse, bro. These guys.
He was
we
going to
go
do a show
pallets?
how.
I was going to do a show how. I even had to take latex gloves out of my kill kit because I forgot others. But like, so you just put the tongue in there of your favorite duck. If you're, little Jimmy, little Susie shot their first duck, we can give you the ancestry of that. Right now, it's only ducks. Soon we'll do all the geese because we're building the data set, the reference data set for all those 11 Canada geese and all the snow geese and Rosses and everybody else. But right now it's ducks and primarily mallards. We're asking the hunters out there to become hunter scientists and provide
Count
their
me in.
data. Give us the opportunity to make waterfowl at the forefront of wildlife conservation. Nobody's ever tried something like this. There's duck hunters all over. I know we're at like 950,000. But if everybody signs up, there's only 300. And I want to thank all the donors to DU that made this possible. It's free this year to sign up, free to get your kit. Hopefully we have a mass amount of people and interest, and we will make this hopefully viable into the future. But I'm just super excited about it because this has been a dream, right? Amass all the duck hunters to provide at landscape and time intervals that would be impossible for any researcher to do, right?
Yep.
We would be able to study where are there hotspots of hybridization, pintail mallard, these types of things, as well as obviously my interest right now, where this came about is getting countrywide sampling of mallards to get after and get ahead of this question with this whole game farm release and what it means to our wild North American mallards.
DuckDNA.com.
That's cool.
Curtain closed.
Thank you to Dr. Phil. Thank you to the Flying V guys. Don't leave without your vials.
Oh, I'm grabbing like 10 of them.
It takes 10 seconds
31.
to sign up.
Yeah,
31.
we're in.
We're
I
on.
signed up last
Thanks,
night.
Phil.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Thanks,
Thank
Phil.
you all.